The group workshops that we were doing. And we started just collecting them. And we've gotten lots. I don't know how many are in there at this point. Well, okay. You start now? Okay. What? Yeah, okay, you can start them. So I just wanted to show you these before we'll talk a bit more about the technicals. But these are some of the photos we were getting. This is when we were doing one of the drum circle stands, chadras, and they were using the orb calls and the whole bit. And there's a whole bunch of these. It wasn't just like one or two. There's strings of them. And what's funny about them, it's not just one person out there with a camera photographing these. These were multiple cameras for multiple individuals. Some of them, it was their first workshop, and they were getting orbs, and people still are getting orbs. Sometimes we get them inside, but not in the concentrations that we've been able to when we're generating energy outside. So I just wanted to, especially the people that are new to the work, to see that we're getting some interesting phenomena. It's not the focus of the work, but it's going to become more important because we've learned a lot of things about the orbs. Aren't they cool? I was like, oh, they're so pretty. Hi, guys. Right. And the funny thing is, some people, you can get a little feel that they're present, but you usually can't see them with your eyes. They only show up on the film, which is interesting. And they only show up on certain film. You can have three people standing next to each other pointing in the exact same space. Depending on what's activated and in which person's field, it will depend on whether they get the photos of the orbs or not. Yeah. But we've got, quite a lot of them. This was the biggest one where we just had or blizzard. We've learned to refer to them as, they're the blizzard kind. The blizzard ones have to do With elemental command, they're actually elemental orb flows, where the larger ones are more likely to be visiting. Like, somebody going into Jade body from another place, projecting down and visiting, where the ones that look like snow, they're conscious too, but they have to do with literally the elemental kingdom and like elements, like you see on your periodic table of elements, the consciousness of them coming in flow. And we're working with orb flows, the elemental orb flows, for healing on the planetary level. But I just wanted to let you see some of these. We haven't published them or anything yet. And they're from, a bunch of different people that were at the workshops. That was in St. Kitts, that one. St. Kitts. I hope you guys can see. Can you see it all over there? I'm hoping you can, because these are worth seeing. Even if you wanted to come and stand in the back, you're welcome to do that. But at some point, this I know is going to have to do. Yeah, there's another one. And so you can see the people. So you have background and stuff that shows you, context. And I was amazed. I was really thrilled because it was at this one that I did bring my camera, and finally after I was done with the job part where I'm doing the meditation and running the meditation on the on the headsets, I decided, okay, I'll take some, and I was so excited. I got my first orb pictures ever. And there were a lot of the elemental ones with the like snow orbs. Yeah, but everybody's been getting tons of pictures except Ash. So I finally got I got a whole series of them. Where's the one in there? Yeah, there's there. See, the ones inside tend to be more localized, like individuals with somebody hanging with them kind of thing. Try to get out of the way if I'm on the way over there for people. Yeah, and there's so many of them. I think I think we printed out at least 75 of them. And they were just from 3 events. They weren't and then none of them are from people's sending stuff in from home or anything. 300 or 400 now, I think they said that Asan said we've got about that. Yeah, 300 or 400. There was one, I remember, it was an indoor one that, and this was after they talked to us about the Christ Star vehicle that is shaped kind of like diamond-like. There's actually a photo inside of an orb, a colored orb, that was shaped like a Christ Star vehicle, which was really cool. I don't know if that's in this series or not. I have a printout copy of it somewhere. I don't think I've seen all of these. I've seen some. Ooh, I've got somebody up over our heads there. Let's see. I'm going to watch these too, actually. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So is that the end of them? No? Or we still have more? Oh, that's the sequence? Yeah. Yeah. But just when you look at these, more closely, you can see the structure of the rings. When we talked about the Rasha bodies with the 15 Jalizic ring structures, the rings and spans, some of these you can see the structures of the Rasha structures inside of them and the auric level structures. So it was quite an amazing demonstration for us of the things that we had been being taught for quite a while about anatomy, about our own ability to go into orb. All of a sudden we were getting demonstrations by using the specific tones that would actually call them in. And what calls them in is, first of all, they can choose to come if they want to, but there are certain aspects of the planetary grids that need to be opened, like doorways that need to be opened. They're gates of some sort. They don't have to be just like the 12 planetary stargates or anything, but it opens certain passages into the shield. So we were like a traveling gate. When we get together and we do these energetic exercises, the shield itself that the group forms is like a traveling gate. Wherever you put it, it has the potential to open up an interface into the ascension chambers so that guardian visitors can come and visit. So it's a safe way to begin working with orbs. I do believe the book that we're hoping will come out now probably around January, because they've given me basically just an outline, and they're going to transmit the new book, the 2012 Life After Earth, Orb Whisperers, and the Silver Seed Awakening. Orbs are going to become, I think, more significant in contact, and I'm not sure what they mean with that yet, but this was just like a little sampling of some of the things we have to look forward to. Because sometimes when orbs fully come in, they could actually expand out, get as big as you are, or bigger, and then they kind of rotate, and I've seen them do this, and turn into a pillar. Instead, they kind of compact and go pillar shape, and then that pillar shape kind of goes, ding, 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 does this weird thing, kind of like stacking effect, and it materializes into a being. I've had experiences like that in my younger days with beings that popped in like that, where they come in as a tiny little orb, all of a sudden, bang, zoom, real fast, pillar's there, and pillar turns into being that's translucent. And so I've had contact like that before, so I know it's possible. So in the book, I think they're going to be giving techniques as far as how to engage not only your own ability to orb project, but also how to begin communication with some of the orb groups that are, and the orb groups, they look like orbs here because they're going into orb to come and visit us, just like we've been taught to use techniques to orb ourselves and project ourselves to go visit them. But you're dealing with beings who have their own mostly hominid structure, you know, like, just like we have hominid structure. And it's the first level of direct communication that we're actually getting photography of. There's a lot of people who've been getting pictures of orbs for lots of years, and some of them are fakes, because some people do that, just like some people fake crop circles. Some crop circles aren't fake. These we had no reason to fake. It was just a surprise, and anybody at these workshops can tell you that's what was happening. It's like, whoa, all of a sudden people are running around with cameras going, look, I got orbs, right? So just wanted to share that with you, especially with the people. I don't think we've ever put them up this way, have we? For the main group? Only once? Once before. Yeah, so it's nice for everybody to see them. I know, I've always wondered that too. Why can't we see them with our eyes, but the camera can see them? I haven't got the answer fully to that. There's a bit of technicals, and it has to do with light bending and the frequency of the eyes themselves and what they're able to pick up. But anyway, so I just wanted to share with you some of the things that it means to be part of our workshops. I'm glad that everybody that's been coming for a long time is still here, and we're very glad to have the people who it's your first workshop. We hope you enjoy it and decide you found a bit of spiritual family. So see you tomorrow, 10 p.m. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience, and for people who it's your first workshop, thank you doubly for your patience, because you haven't got used to this yet. I'm glad it looks like most people survived and are still here, because, well, we just have a few graphs to go through tonight. I think like 49, and And one of the things that they wanted me to do before they even gave me sequence was to, let me see if I can find the paper copy of it. Because we have to have things, especially when there's this many people, that's huge printing runs at Kinko's. We had to get this 36-page thing done. So that will be in your handbook, and that has to go out early in the morning. And this little thingy is the Contemporary Drama JMCO Mission Upgrades and Freedom Teachings Chronology, 1998 to 2010, with the density accretion cycles, leap years, etc. Now, it also has definitions for all of the things that are the most important things in the 12 tribes classes and also in the sliders classes to date. So it doesn't have the full analysis going all the way back to 1999 of workshop content, but I think I have only missed 2 up to the beginning of 2007, which is pretty good. By tomorrow, they're probably going to show me which sets of techniques are going to be needed for the beginner's leap linking host. So that's why they wanted this, and they also wanted, it's a very good, really quick primer for people who have forgotten because they've been with us so long, and also for people who are just coming on board. Some of the terms that are used, what they refer to, what they mean, especially when we get into things like the Aqualine Sun Buffer Field. What is that? You know, those kind of things. So there's enough definition in there where it'll give you the idea of what we're talking about. Then once we got finished with that, they wanted us to go on to program for tonight. Now it's really funny because I was thinking when they had said that they wanted to let Sliders 8 be open to, to newcomers if they wanted to come in, like even from the Camelot project, or Project Camelot interviews and things. And I was thinking, oh boy, okay, but how are we going to do this? Because you're going to have one group of people that knows hardly anything at all about the work or the words or anything. Then you're going to have another group of people that are really, really up on what it means, so they know what the information is, why it's important, and the significance of it. What's really interesting is when they've showed me what we are going to be doing through this workshop period, it's an amazing blend wave, and we've talked about blend wave before, the CRIST blend wave, where the way they want to work the program is it will bring the people that are just coming in right up into the level where they can take the activations with us and understand enough about what that means so they can perhaps get the significance. Because the significance, I think, will probably be mostly understood and most felt by the people who have been with us for quite a while. So it's not like just everything's catered to the beginners, program here. There's something amazing that is happening with this particular program. It's something we've been waiting for, actually working toward all along, and that's why they had it on a security clearance. So it's a celebration for the old-timers that have been around for a long time and have been working really hard with the activations and all of that and with the grid work. And it's also nice that the newcomers can come in and join us in that celebration with at least a rudimentary understanding of the potential significance of what it means. And even if you don't fully grasp the whole thing of what it means, you will be able to participate in the techniques and the activations if you choose. And that will allow you to have a level of protection in your field that will be very, very new to you. And what's nice about the way they are working this program is before, as we progressively worked with the Christic frequencies going higher, higher, and higher in the dimensional spectra, if people would come in new at certain levels, it could give them a bit of a problem if they had field problems. If they had, say if they had something hanging in their fields that was on the FA team and they didn't know it, then they'd start running Christic techniques, and there would be a clash, literally a clash of interest between the thing in the field that was trying to control the person and that they didn't know was there, and the Christic frequencies the person was consciously choosing to bring in. What is really nice about the frequency spectra that we are able to finally open now is that won't happen. If there are people that have come in that might not realize they have things in their field that they would prefer not there if they were given a choice, there won't be the clash of frequencies in regard to those, because there is a certain level of the Christic frequency spectra that goes beyond just the Christic, and it accompanies, it includes everything. So it can harmonize with the worst of an FA frequency just as much as it can harmonize with the highest of Akristic frequency. And this is a new place, a new space that we've been progressively, pardon me, I'm just a little bit tired, progressively working up the dimensional spectrum until we could get to. And I'll start with the Mylars first, because there's a whole bunch of new words again. And just remember, the people that are new, when you see funny words, and we've been working with words all along, we need a dictionary. Seriously, we have one, thanks to a person in the group that actually made a dictionary, and we need to keep adding to it. There are certain sound and vibrational encryptions, mathematical encoding, underneath the sounds of words, and that is why they use the sacred languages that literally correspond with the vibrations of the frequencies that we are trying to bring in. So in the last workshop, Slider 7, we got introduced to the lands of Wa, as they call them, W-H-A, the Wa sounds. Now, by the time we get through to where the activations come in for this workshop, the new people will at least have a rudimentary understanding of what the heck is the lands of Wa, right, and whatever, right? Because now, right, because now we're going to graduate to the lands of and find out what they are. Right? I finally got at least a rudimentary itinerary of things we are going to be covering in this workshop. All right? These are some of the things that are going to occur. Now, this is what they're calling it. We know it's Sliders 8, Preparing the Body for Slide, the Advanced Level. All right? But the title is Awake, Aware, and Alive in the Lands of Ah. The Sea of Ah, eternal stream of, and pardon me if I have to slow these down, because all these ayayas and ayezas and all that stuff, they're all, I have to really look at them or I get tongue twisted. So we've got the Sea of Aya, the eternal stream of ayaye, no, ayaye, right. Yeah, see, when you see these words, by the way, new people, you'll see capitals in certain places. You'll see these little accent marks, which mean that's where you stress the syllable, right? If you see like capital A, it means usually A, unless it's at the beginning of something that just like, you know, it's a title of it. Sometimes it's a small A sound at the beginning or a small sound at the beginning, even if it's a capital letter. But there's a trick to reading these things that you get used to after a while, as far as they're phonetic, pretty much. They're pretty much, you know, phonetically written to carry the sound tones that the beloveds are saying. The next thing is the covenant of Ayaru and the eternal dream fields of the One. This is what they're titling this workshop. And I'm going, oh, wow, okay, what's that about, right? So we do know this from, and this information corresponds with the handout you will get that traces the mugs, which are the mission upgrades that we have had to progressively go through since the beginning of the work, right? And the reason we had to go through those was because of what was unfolding in the planetary drama in relation to the FA groups and what they were doing with the grids and what they were doing in relation to what was called the beast machine implants in the planetary grids, which are directly a part of what we've even discussed in the Camelot project interview, was the Atlantean Death Star Merkaba field planetary level. So all of these things are connected. So when you see things like this, mugs mean mission upgrade number. We are on mission upgrade number 46 in this workshop. Yeah, and that's since 2000, right? We started in 2000. In this workshop, we are going to, and we'll learn more about this one tomorrow, what's called the Covenant of Ayaru. This is also tracking, when we go back to listing the mugs, the Green Dragon's Albignon. This is Albignon 8, the eighth dispensation of the Green Dragon's Treaty of Albignon assistance, that in return for the assistance that they had petitioned for in relation to, because they're an FA group and they were actually competing with the Red-White Dragons and they were losing terribly and they were going to get pretty much decimated. So they came crawling back after breaking the Treaty of Altair way back in 2000 and asked for the beloved's protection and assistance. And in return, the beloved said, yes, we will, but you need to, you know, hand over portions of your grids or we can't help you at all. So they're progressively handing over certain aspects to Christic control, which means they're letting parts of the Metatronic grids on the planet run what's called the Christ blend wave, where you can blend a Christic frequency wave into the waveforms that are being generated through the Metatronic frequencies. So this is the 8th handover, the 8th assistance that they are giving. When we get to the Mayan cruise, that is the 9th. So these two, what we're going to be doing with the people who are going to the Biosphere Tour, they're going to be doing the first part of what finishes up on the cruise, and that is the 8th and 9th handovers of grids, which has to do with what's called the Metatronic Broadcasting System. All right, just like you have like broadcasting systems for radios and TV. Well, there are Metatronic broadcasting systems on the planet, and right now we are the Green Dragons are allowing us to interface with those in order to actually send the Krish protection wave through with the Metatronic wave. So anybody that has Krishtic, coding in their DNA will be able to pick up the Christic frequencies also, so they won't just get dragged fully into Metatronic activations after December of 2012 when the planetary Death Star Merkaba begins to activate to a 55. It's not going to go full 55, but it will activate to a low 55. So anyway, and if that makes no sense to you guys that are new, don't worry about it. Eventually it will. But I'm kind of like talking to the people who know all this stuff and the people who don't simultaneously. So there'll be parts when I'm talking directly, more so to the people who are not familiar, and the people who are will realize I'm doing that, and vice versa. So if you feel like you're getting totally lost, people that are new, just let that be okay. Know I'm basically aiming that at the other part of the audience that knows all the technicals, so don't worry about it. If you ever want to find out, the technicals are there in amazing detail, actually. The detail that this work has been progressively given to us in just amazes me. And if it wasn't for that, I might have doubted myself in relation to it or any of that. But when you see the detail in this paradigm and how amazingly huge it is, it's just a no-brainer. There is nothing like it on the planet. And I'm just very grateful, and I hope that that it's here, and a lot of people that have come to understand it are. I hope the people that are new will find it something that is freeing for them as well. So anyway, we'll get back to this. Now, what is occurring now, because of the activations that have been going on before, and this is something that the new people will be able to have a benefit from, but it's something that the people who've been with us for a while have been progressively working toward. We are going to have a 6-dimensional MetNet freeze immunity activating as of the end of this workshop period, which means all the activations we were doing before that had to do with the mirror ball fields and all of that will be complete. And finally, we will have this 6-dimensional MetNet freeze immunity, which means the Metatronic code cannot activate any further in your body than it already had before. All right? Yeah. And it also means that 4-month purge cycle is done. Yeah. I don't know what it was like for any of you, but I know what it was like for us, and I wouldn't want to go there again. Okay, so we'll be talking more about those technical things more in tomorrow's session, or today's session, this evening's session, because it's already Sunday, right? So the next session, we will be dealing more with just covering that. It's also explained more, quite clearly in the, especially for people who know the terminology in the handout. As long as Kinko's cooperates, that you will get those 36 pages. It does explain what they were and all of that. So I might not have to go over it verbally in the workshop. It's there for the reading. But what this allows for is something new that is called enabling initiation of building the dream fields of the One. And it was really fun. When they started to just give me pieces of the transmission, they started to say to me, "If you build it, they will come." Like the Field of Dreams, right, movie. And I'm thinking, what, baseball fields? And they're saying, not exactly. So we're going to find out more about that. We'll probably touch on it a bit tonight. We'll probably learn more specifics about the dream fields of the One, and when we go into the next session's information. This is GA Up Step 11. All right, now up steps, for the people who might not know, are when we have a council up step, where, say, if you're working with a council from, I'll just use simple analogy. These aren't the dimensional numbers, but just say if you were working before with a council from D2, you'd up step to the next council that knows more and has more frequency, et cetera, that would be, say, on D3. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way up the scale. But the scale is much more than just 15 dimensions. It goes into Vekas, Ekas, Vekas, Akashas, Akasha Ayas, et cetera, et cetera. And those are something you probably have no idea what they are unless you maybe had taken the module that was offered, which I hope you did, because it will make it easier to understand. But we'll cover that briefly as we move through to get to the end place where we need to get to tonight, which is all of us together having an understanding of what is the Aya exactly, right? And the other words that go with it. So we will find that out by the end of the graph sequence. Now, the up step here is where we're going to the Crystal River Eternal Councils of Ayaru Cosmea, of the Cosmic Christ Star Master Councils. Now, this is going to have something to do with graphs that we're going to get tomorrow that have to do with showing, we've already, the people who've worked with us for a long time, already understand the basics of cosmic structure and what a cosmic matrix looks like. Well, there's something else that's even larger that has numerous ones of those in it that is called a cosmea. And of the cosmea level is just like out of your own matrix, going out of the matrix, and up into the larger framework in which that matrix exists. And we'll be learning more about that, but we will be beginning to bring in the frequencies from those levels of existence, reality, consciousness, etc. There's 2 activations that we will be doing before we leave this morning. Before we leave, it's probably going to be one of those break up workshop and go to breakfast kind. But there are 2 transmissions coming in for those who would like to participate in them that have to do with the first parts of activating this particularly high level of frequency in your own fields. And it is this particular level that has the ability to harmonize with everything, be it FA or Christic. So we will learn a bit more about what is that, what does it have to do with the ayahs and all of that. Let's see. We are going to get Aquafarian Shield, that's our shield, another upgrade from what we had the last time. In Slider 7 we got an upgrade on Shield 2, which means for the people who aren't familiar with this, when we get an Aquafarian Shield upgrade, it means the group shield actually gets an infusion of frequencies from the beloveds, from the next level, whatever the next level up is, that begins the activation in the shield and in your personal shields and biofields of those next level of frequencies. And it has to do with also what councils will start coming online with you or guiding you and working with you. And whenever we do an upstep or upgrade, it's not as if we get rid of the councils that were below. It's we add one above them, and we have the whole stream of frequency open between all of the councils. So every council from the ones we started with, which were the like Elohai Elohim, when we first started getting the information, progressively the councils that are above them came online, and the ones above them came online. So this is what it means when we get a shield upgrade. They're turning on the codes in the Aquafarian Shield, which means the persons attached to the Aquafarian Shield will begin the process of getting those codes turned on in their DNA and their biofields. So they will be able to start a communicative relationship, or at least a subtle relationship if you don't have the communication open yet. You will know that they are there and they can hear you and assist you if you require, if you desire that assistance. Now, what we did last time was we did an upgrade to the Tri-Universal, and that means 3 Akasha matrices, Tri-Universal Mashayahana Master Councils of the Crystal River Host, which were the Wayeyas Adashi Adept Councils. Now, Adashi Adepts are the ones who have also already gone through the Christ Star transition into full eternal life Christed bodies, where they don't die anymore or any of that kind of thing. They don't bardo. They're in those cycles that we refer to as the Adashi return cycles. And we are still in the end cycle, the Kali Yuga cycle of the expansion going out from source cycles. And at the end of the Kali Yuga cycle, there is a turnaround that is supposed to happen to bring you back into the Adashi return cycles, where you progressively still expand, but expand back inward to source. So you go back into where you came from, which is the God source consciousness field. So anyway, this was our last shield upgrade, where these codes were turned on so we could open communicative relationships with these councils. And now we are going to be invited And this is funny because I have to talk with the 3 apprentices who have been identified since 2006 and have been working with us quietly. They have reached a point of what you could call graduation, because there's a period of life tests that they need to go through that they don't know they're going through, that just are part of the contracts. And when they've reached a certain level of where the beloveds feel that they have sufficiently, passed those tests where they can hold the next level of frequency, then there's supposed to be a little kind of swearing in ceremony where they're, asked again if they want to hold it. I have to talk to them personally first to see if they want to do that privately or if they would prefer to have their identities known, to the group. That's up to them. But we're all being invited to become apprentices, to have apprenticeship commissions. Now, whatever level of minister you have already, that is still yours. As far as our membership in the Mashayahana councils, that is still ours. We're being invited as apprentices to these councils, which are the councils of the Ayaru Cosmea. Pronounce these things, Ayaru Cosmea, and they are the ones of the cosmic Christ, our master councils, that are beyond and out of the matrix. So that is a huge honor, and just the gratitude level that I felt when that came through. I was very excited for us all. And what's really nice is that isn't something that the people that are new are being excluded from. If they would like to be a part of that, they are welcome to be a part of that, even though they haven't gone through yet the other layers of activation in the biofields and the other clearing layers. It will assist in that process and expediting that process if they choose to. If the people who are new don't want to because they're not sure about it yet or anything, that's fine too. You don't have to, and the activations will only come to you and activate within you if you give conscious permission. So it's nothing that you have to worry about. But for us, for the people who've been working really, really hard for a lot of years with this is really exciting. It's like finally crossing the finish line, where there has to be an end to the race somewhere, where you just kind of go, I'm home, yeah, yeah. Excuse me. Okay, so these are the basic things. Probably by the time this workshop is over, this whole page could be filled with things that are going to occur and that we're going to learn. But this is the basics for now that they'd like to understand that we're going to move through. Next one, please. And this is just a little teaser, because this is going to actually is page 41 in the graph series. But I just want for the people, especially for the people who are sliders 8, they've already done the other sliders bit before. These are some of the things we're going to learn about, which is, they're calling them the infinite eternal lands of Ah. Right? All right. One, we're going to learn about something called the Aya, equals the Sea of Dreams. The living, infinite, eternal, God source consciousness field equals the unutterable one. It actually, there is no word for it. There is not a name of God. God has many names and no names. It is a place that's beyond even vibration. And you would need vibration to have a name imprint, right? So this is what is called the Aya, all right? The Aya, actually, yeah, Aya. So when we heard that, and that's the word they were saying to me, that one clue they gave me for the last week or so, what the workshop was about, Aya. Aya, aha, okay, right. So Aya is actually the word used to represent the essence of the unutterable one, because there isn't a word for that massive consciousness field, living consciousness field of source. But to open the conduits of frequency where you can progressively be able to bring that level of consciousness awareness in, the Aya is the essence. So that is the encryption essence of that field. So you can use that word to begin the process of bringing those frequencies in. Now, the next thing we're going to learn about is, here we go again, Ayaye. The Ayaye, the eternal living dream stream. Dream stream. It's the Ayaye is the flowing essence of the unutterable one. So here, the Aya is that consciousness field of source. It is the encryption you can use to bring those frequencies in. It is not the name of God, because there is not one you could speak, but it is one you can feel and open into your fields using the Aya. And the Ayaye is when you go into that state and then begin to bring those frequencies in, and they begin to flow into yourself. So one is like a still sea, and the other is like a flowing river or current. So they call this the eternal living dream stream, because this is the sea of dreams. So it is the stream coming from the sea of dreams, which is the eternal life God source consciousness field. All right. So we are going to be opening this stream into our biofields during the activations that we are going through during the workshop. Number 3 is the the ayaya is the state of consciousness of embodiment of the living dream stream. Yeah, Asan set this for me. I had it in scribbles when I was figuring, I'm never going to remember which ya is where, or is where. So I figure if I'm going to have a problem with it, probably most people will too. And like what ya is on first, who's where. So, right, yeah. So Asan set this for us quick so we could all keep track of which is which part. We have the field itself. We have the stream of the frequencies coming from the field. We have the state of consciousness of that stream, right? Then we have the Aye. This is the embodiment of the Ayaya dream stream. Oh boy, right. We're going to get into these more so in the session 2, where there's going to be some very interesting things that we're going to do. The Aye is the body replicate formed of the Ayaye dream stream currents. All right, dream stream currents forming a replicate of your own body as it is right now, right? That progressively engages you with the Ayaya state of consciousness associated with the dream stream, right? The body of the eternal host. You can project with it, you can meditate from within it, you can mirror from it, and the people who've been with Slider 7 know what mirroring from it means. You can orb from it, and also it will host link you now and ever if you choose, even in a bardo state, even if your body were to die. Once you have this activated in your field, you would be safe in terms of where your consciousness would go when you left your body. You would not end up stuck in the hibernation zone fields and the planes that we've talked about and those kind of things. And this is why that even though there's a lot of biofield activations that the people that are new to the work would need to catch up on if they wanted to fully walk a body through a gate, they can still, with this particular activation set, catch the host where, even if they never get to the point or they couldn't be bothered with learning all the stuff that it takes to, get the light body cleared and the spirit body cleared and all of that. They would still have the security and the safety of knowing that whenever they left, whenever their body was done being alive here, they would not have their consciousness trapped within it. And they would be able to go out to the natural God state consciousness fields through host, through the Crystal River host, but they would not become trapped. And that is huge for people who really understand what it means to get trapped in some of those fields. If you haven't had the teachings that we've done before, talking about the hibernation zone planes that are just surrounding Earth and how miserable they can be, where when a being passes out of its body, it gets stuck in those planes and it can't ascend, and it ends up either burning out its quantum of spirit energy while it is there, or it is forced into reincarnation back down in the earthly cycles until each time it has to incarnate backwards because it has less and less quantum until it burns out. So it's a huge thing to have protection, to have immunity from that occurring. Even if you go through what would be considered here natural death, there is no such thing as a natural death. But as far as even if you didn't get all of the other activations done or ever get caught up or ever even bothered, you would be able to, if you wanted to take these activations, be able to hold the host and know you would be safe when you got out. You would also be able to pass on to others through transmission, even just being in the radiance. And there's a few ways you can just pass on the opportunity for hosting and for safety to others, like your parents, your children, people you care about. You can't force it on them, but you can breathe it gently toward their fields, and if their fields want to respond and their higher consciousness wants to pick up that opportunity, you will have anchored it down in the earth realm for them. So they will be able to, their higher consciousness will be able to choose what to do with that once you have that activation. You can never give anyone else an activation level higher than what you actually are holding. So you won't be able to help clear people's light bodies until you've cleared your own. But if you get this, even coming in as a newcomer, and you pick up these frequencies, you will be able to pass on that protection to others. You'll also be able to pass it on to plants, animals, minerals, those kind of things. So it is a gift that there is a lot of work to do, a lot of work a lot of people have been doing for 10 years of clearing various aspects of their anatomy so they still have the potential to physically walk through a Stargate. And even some people are like, well, you know, I realize I can, I've done a lot of the activations, and the activations help you bring more of your own higher consciousness in anyway. So even if you say, you know, I'm old, and you know, personally, I'd rather just incarnate into, like, you know, the next level up body. So I don't really care if I bardo. I don't really care if I physically take myself through a gate, and I'm pretty much there myself, right? Whatever. You know, if I get my sorry butt through, fine. If I don't, at least my consciousness will go and my spirit will go. So anyway, but there is still the potential for a lot of us that do the light body clearing and all of the things that we've been working with for 10 years. Once those things are done, you still do have the potentiality of being able to go through physical transmigration, through transfiguration of the atomic structure. So it is worth working for, because boy, would it be cool. I would so love to say, come on guys, let's go, leap, right? There's the portal, leap, right? And you know, come out the other side and go, wow, whoa, we did it, check it out. You know, am I solid? Right? Am I solid yet? Those kind of things, because it would be kind of like that. The experience would be something like that. But anyway, okay, so we're on, where are we? Yeah, we're on the IA. The IA is that body replicate. This is where you begin to take the atoms as they are right now, your structure as it is right now, and bring that dream stream into it and literally form an imprint of it with the dream stream. And this body, you can do all sorts of things with. You can, like, sit there. Once you have it activated, you can start learn to put your consciousness more in it, and say, go walk across the room, or go fly on the ceiling, or you can do all sorts of things, or like go visit the beloveds in various places once you know how to get there with the echo maps and those kind of things, and the vertical maps. So it is the beginning of a fun thing. They gave me a concept to compare the IA to. If I don't know if everybody's seen it, but that movie that came out not too long ago is called Avatar, right? Well, it's kind of like an organic process of. It would be like your avatar body, where you could switch your consciousness, but you don't have to be put in this, like, chamber, and you didn't have to genetically engineer your avatar body like they did in the movie. But you would be able to literally transfer your consciousness into your avatar body and begin to experience the worlds that were frequency compatible with that, which means you would be able to travel farther, faster, even while your physical body was still trying to go through the healings and the clearings needed to get it to the point where it could physically go. So there's a lot of fun that we can begin to have once we begin to activate this. I don't know if they'll teach us how to have fun with it yet, but what we're going to be doing is, in this process tomorrow, I believe we're going to be doing creating the IA. And then there's this other thing they said. They said it's called the orbs of IA, orbs of the embodied IA dream state, right? So orbs of this, which is the embodiment of that, right? They haven't told me about what the orbs of this are. We've already been going into Jade body orb for projection and those kind of things. The people have been working with this for a while. So this is another level of orbing that also involves this body replicate of you in the size, I think in the size that you are. Maybe it's bigger. I don't know. They didn't tell me yet. But anyway, we're going to be learning about this. And this has to do with, we're going to learn about something. We're actually going to assist the beloveds in anchoring it and opening it. It's called the womb of creation in the sphere of Amentet in Earth core to allow them to incarnate here. And there's been a lot of problems with the sphere of Amentet, and in, what was it, last year's, 2009's, yeah, Ireland workshop. It became, a part of it became what was called the sphere of destiny, which was a part that was healed and protected from the Metatronic activations. they're going to have us do something, create a womb of creation within it, because this has to do with something that the covenant, I forget the name of it, I don't have it on this list, but it was on the first page. There's a covenant that has to do with people who are interested in assisting. There's a very big project coming in that has to do with the dream fields, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. There is a host of the Messiah that are going to birth in between, over the next 200 years. And they're asking us to, first of all, create the womb, because we have to anchor it. It needs to be anchored in the frequencies down here, to create the womb within the sphere of Amenti, so that they can do that. And once that is done, there will be some of us that get moved to create the framework that they are going to need. There's going to be a lot that they are going to need because, well, can you imagine if they're like kids and you're going to put them in mainstream zoos called schools? Not really. Yeah, I mean, you could. There's some things that they've been mentioning to me a little bit lately about babies and infants and things, and about the development of neural networks and those kind of things, where certain types of environments will actually allow certain neural networks and to form, and others not to remain dormant. And sometimes the dormant ones can be woken back up in adulthood, but very often they can't, all of them. The Messiahs that are going to come in at a certain point are hoping that we would be able to create for them a community structure. It can be even small ones, but where we'd have maybe like charter schools or those kind of things where their needs could be attended to as well. They could learn the stuff of reading, writing, arithmetic, all that stuff, sure, computers, etc. And they'll probably be computer whizzes, by the way. The next generation of technos, oh boy, right? They'll be like, yeah, I just, my generation didn't get that coding. It's still like four-finger typing, But they have a big vision for this. Not everybody has to participate. It's just, if you feel love, it's something that we're being asked to co-create with the beloveds to host these children, because these children will, and their children's children will, there'll be enough where they have a couple generations. They will build a portion of the angelic human genetic code back up and activate it to the point where there will be enough of them when the time comes, when the gates are going to close here in 200 years, that the beloveds will be able to physically have them come off planet, which means the angelic human gene code will not go extinct. It will be able to come in physical form off the planet before the gates close. Now, some of us might make that trip too. And even if we make that trip, if we get our bodies to the point where we really can, get them out biologically, it's not going to change the fact that it takes more than like a little group of people like this, even if we all got out, to restart a race, a species, because that is what's occurring. Because right now there is so much damage to the angelic human gene code from crossbreeding with the Anunnaki and the Draconian races. And for people who don't know about this, a bit of that history is in Voyagers Volume 2, 2nd edition. It talks about the Leviathan races and how they were created. They look human too. And but they're not inside. Well, some of them are. Many of us are just mixed coding right now. But this is a resurrection of the full angelic human gene code that will be coming in progressively. The first level of the Messiahs that come in will be able to fix part of that coding and get it back to a more pure strain of angelic human. And then their children will be able to do the same and just get to the point where, because right now when we go through, even if we go through, we're going through as kind of like potluck. We're the melting pot, because we've got all sorts of codes in this version of human, and that's okay. That can go forth too. But to allow the original, literally the original DNA configuration of angelic human that none of us fully possess anymore. We have its potentials, but we have a lot of other stuff in with it too, which gives us abilities to help a lot of other races. But the beloveds would like to have the angelic human race not go extinct as a gene code, the Earth angelic human race. So they are asking us to assist in the process of bringing the Messiahs in so they can progressively bring the code back. And I imagine by the time there's 200 years from now, when the gates are going to close, you're going to have some very tall people walking around. Because I think they're at least 12 feet tall when they get, when the full code is activated, when the full angelic human code is activated. So we will see. But they are asking us to begin thinking about creating right within this Illuminati-based civilization that we're in, little bubbles of protection little spaces that beings like where they can have the protected environment around them, so those neural networks that they will need to bring in the highest levels of frequency will actually turn on in infancy when they're very small. And this goes back even to in the womb. Whatever a baby in the womb experiences, a lot of people don't realize it, but they hear it, they experience it, whatever frequencies are blasting around it. Like if you're like listening to heavy metal, you know, and you've got a baby in there, your baby's listening to heavy metal and the frequencies that go with it, right? So there's a lot of things that they will eventually be giving us, not just the spiritual teachings of the practical level spiritual teachings, like even if you don't want to learn about being a grid master and all that stuff, just, wow, this is like, you know, really special belief system here. You can really connect with God source and really find yourself and your higher self and your spirit. They're going to give us that, but they're going to give us more practicals. They've already told us about fetal integration. They've already told us about what happens when you die and how to do it and how not to do it. They've told us many, many things about just things that we face every day as beings living on a planet. Birth, death, conception. They're going to start teaching us more things about those things, like about children, about babies, about when people are older and if they are going to make the Bardo transition. So there's a huge amount of practical teachings that are going to come, and they are going to, you know, they're asking us, those of us who care to help create these little pockets of higher civilization within the civilization that is here. And the Messiahs will come. Some people will have birthing contracts. Some of them are already starting. There's a few last year or so, I think, or 2 years actually. There's been a number, maybe even 3. I get a feeling it's 3 years that the first wave is like trickling in a little bit here, a little bit there. But there's going to be more, and that doesn't mean a lot of people in the group are going to get pregnant. It doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean you have the birthing contracts, right? I'm thinking, oh God, please no. No, I'm too old for that. But, so I don't think I have one of them. Yeah. Now, I kind of made the deal with, well, you know, I'd go there on one condition. If it was the last seed left for the human race, then it's yours, okay? But please leave me out of that deal. Yeah. I love babies, don't get me wrong. I just love them. And, you know, had 4, and that was good, and it is good, and it's great that they're grown up now and have babies. And I like being grandma. So anyway, this is the larger picture of what they're showing us. And it begins with, this is the first time we have had the protection field, the 6-dimensional protection field. If things had gone well in 2000 and the planetary Maharic seal, the D12 seal went up, we would have had that protection. That didn't happen. We ended up in grid wars from September of 2000 onward. So we have worked very hard to get to this point where this protection actually is taking root in the grids. And it allows for the continuation of the next levels of the angelic human races being brought back to their gene code integrity, so that race does not go extinct. Because right now, a lot of the human race is going to go into a new humanity called the Metatronic humanity, where their DNA will be coded to the black hole fall systems. They won't know it. They'll have a good time going for a while. You know, it just seems the same, whatever, right? Until you realize you're living on a planet that's dying and everybody's killing each other, and survival of the fittest gets worse and worse and worse, because that is what happens in fall systems. It may take, many generations for that to occur. But anyway, we're not aiming for that part. We are aiming to bring not only ourselves out with the kind of like mutt codes that we have, where we have angelic human codes, and we got Aquarian to go codes, and we got all sorts of codes, Anunnaki ones, we got Draconian ones, we got reptilian codes. Humanity now is a mishmash of all of those different codes because of what happened in our history. And this is the history that certain forces on the planet, ever since the Atlantean period, which they tried to tell you didn't exist either, are trying to create a false history because they do not want it recognized. They do not want humans to know who and what they are, because we're being run around like little puppets, and we have been since the Atlantean period. So the history, there's a good dose of it in the Voyagers Volume 2 books, if you care to look for it. Look, there's a part about the Leviathan races and how they came into the Earth, Earth's incarnation, and also about, what do they call it, transposition of race identity that has occurred in the angelic human line to come up with this thing we call the Homo sapiens sapien human. So anyway, that's in the Voyagers Volume 2 if you want to go that far and look at it. So we're going to be learning about these things, and then this implies, and this is probably why they had me bring the drum all the way from Florida. And I was thinking, well, we're not even going to do a drum circle. It's like, because, we can't go to a beach or anything. We can't exactly go to the biosphere and do a drum circle. They're not going to let us do that, right? I don't think they'd appreciate it. Not 300 people with drums or whatever. But this implies the call of the Aya. Aya was the top one, that field, right? The still sea of dreams, God source consciousness field. That's called the Aya Aye command. Now it's more than that. There's more syllables to it. But it can be used as a mantra to progressively bring more of that state in and more of those frequencies into the body. And there's going to be, I don't think from this workshop, or maybe, I don't know if they're going to give us a take-home technique to use, there's going to be certain sets of just like simple daily meditations that can be used that are very just, they're not so much about thinking and moving energy here and over there and over the other place like a lot of the technical techniques have been. They will be much more, I could say Zen, but they're not Buddhist, but they're kind of like that state, that Zen state that a lot of the Buddhist meditations talk about and those kind of things. They're more in that vein. So this will be the beginning. We'll be using that and the Aye body for a whole new level of the techniques that it's going to actually, I think, become the beginnings of the step-down programs that anybody can use, even if they hadn't gone through learning all of these things, and that can be put more easily. Eventually, they do want us to be able to put a presence on places like YouTube and Facebook and those kind of things. Once we have the step-down program, we'd like to be able to give just like certain types of free classes of the more simple information that people can use on the ground. Just the simple stuff that can help you feel better and help you get, your higher self, aware and stuff, where you don't have to learn about grids and all the crazy stuff. It sounds crazy if you're not used to it. It's not crazy, really. It's quite intelligent. But you don't have to learn that if you're coming in and you say you know nothing about anything spiritual or metaphysical, and you trip over it on YouTube. You can sit there and you can watch the thing and go, wow, I just learned something. You can do it a simple technique, and you can start to feel the frequencies come in. So we are trying to get to where we have a step-down program that would involve eventually an aspect that is a nonprofit organization again, an actual ministry. And that's what we had wanted to do in the start if we didn't end up entangled in the bloody grid wars that the Anunnaki basically started down here. And a part of that, too, is, this is just a little tidbit of where we're moving. There's going to be, I can't give too much detail on it because it's still in the formative stages with a small group of people who are going to assist in the hands-on process. But the Beloved said they are going to work with creating a set of visual meditations where they're visual journeys, not just ones where you close your eyes and go, but something that you can watch and actually participate in. They couldn't do this before. I won't go further on the technicals on it, but they couldn't do this before because if you were watching anything on any kind of screen, it is powered by electricity. And if it's powered by electricity, you're doing optical pineal induction of electricity that is running through the planetary grids, which are running on the Caduceus network. Now, that would activate Metatronic codes. When you watch TV, you're just really helping yourself activate Metatronic codes and those kind of things. Now, they would not give these type of, that we use visualization a lot, but they would not put it where you could, visualize it and just watch it on a screen or something like that, because it would trigger not only the good codes, the Christic codes in your DNA, but it would simultaneously trigger the Metatronic ones because of the electrical frequency coming in through the eyes especially. Now, because of the MetNet freeze on the D2 level, which is the physical level we perceive, that won't happen anymore. So the TV stuff is not going to hurt us anymore. None of that stuff. Yeah. It's still good to not oversaturate, though, I know a lot of us do the electronic detox thing where you only allow so many hours a week, and then you just get off it, because actually it's meant to drag you in, where you live more through what you're seeing on the screen go by than you actually live in your life. And it's progressively bringing people into the holoband experience of that, I forget what it's called, begins with C. Caprica, that's it. The Caprica series that had the holoband technology where they were doing virtual reality where you project into and you're running around. There's all sorts of worlds in there where you just kind of vegetate on your couch with your holoband on and your life goes to Hades while you're floating around in virtual reality form, right? That is where certain forces are trying to take the technologies. Well, now that the frequencies, the electrical frequencies, won't, when you apply it to using codes, won't anymore trigger the Metatronics because of the MetNet freeze that we've worked with, and we can also now spread to literally through the angelic human shield and through the human shield. So the protection is available for anyone who anchors the base techniques that we're being given now. It means that we can enjoy that same type of getting drawn in, but we can get drawn in into the worlds that we're actually trying to create. And it will just help to actually give you some simple, places to follow in some of the journeys. And then you can take them on your own, where you have enough of the visuals and you go, okay, this will be really great for people who've had a hard time visualizing, because not everybody can close their eyes and imagine they see something. For some people, it's like if you can't see it, if you can't do that really well, just intend that it's there, even if you can't make the images happen, on the inside of your eyelids or whatever. So this will assist lots and lots of people. It will also assist lots and lots of younger people that have become glued to those, those war games and things that they're always playing. It'll give them an option where you can also have joyful worlds where they're win-win games and not win-lose games. And worst case scenario, you could always do a game that has the Christics and the fallen angelics, because all of those games tend to have to have a good guy and a bad guy, right? And the goal is the gates, right? Right? Who is going to get the gates? Whatever. But anyway, it's going to bring the tech. It's going to combine finally the spiritual inner technologies that we've been working with all along. We can now finally begin to combine them with the outer technologies that are basically running the planet and everybody's plugged into. So it's a nice vision that the beloveds have in mind here. Now things like that do not come cheap and they don't come easy. So they're not going to be like out by next workshop. Yeah, right. We'll be lucky if they're out by 2013. But they are coming. That is part of the the things that they're aiming for. Okay, so anyway, the call of Aya is, I don't know if it's going to come through with a drum beat, and I think it might, because that's why they had me bring the drum. But this will be part of the next session. I won't say tomorrow, because it will be tonight. Excuse me while I take my shoes off. I have blisters on the backs of both heels, and these hurt. I've been limping through the airport. There we go. Better. Okay, next one, please. Now. I think it's the next one. Oh yeah, I'll go into this really quick. I'm not going to go heavily into these questions. I touched on them before, and I'll probably touch on them again before we leave the workshop for good. Frequently asked questions about the teachings. One of them is, who are the guardians? I'm going to show you something that will help answer that much more quickly than if I go on and on for an hour and a half. Where did where did the freedom teachings come from? When I get tired, by the way, I've been at the computer ever since I woke up this morning, except for the last hour where I started to sequence the stuff. So if I seem a little tired, yes, I am, but I'm still cheerful. It's just sometimes when I'm tired, the wave of information that I kind of ride on when I'm speaking with you goes faster than my mouth can keep up with. It's a little bit funny sometimes, so pardon me if I trip over my lips a bit. Where did the word come from? This will also, what I'm going to show you will answer this and give you some pretty good answers into this. There's more answers you can get to this that have to do with the cloister Doratura plates and those kind of things. But for now, it will give you an idea of where all of even those things come from. What is the purpose of the freedom teachings? What we will see and learn about in the thing I will show you. Not just the next graph I'll show you, but it's actually a list. But this, by the time we get through, I hope, the 49 graphs, this will help you understand. The purpose is simple. Ascension, freedom from the mind control networks here, getting our birthright of eternal life, freedom, joy, love, cooperation, nice worlds to live in, all of that, getting all that back. That is the purpose of the work. But you will see some more of the specifics of the purpose when we go through the diagram set. Is this work fear-based? Nah, we'll talk probably a little bit more about that when we're on our way out to end the workshop, at the end of the last session. And that too. You'll probably be able to answer that pretty much yourself. Why should I care? By the time you get through to the end of this. And if not, that's okay. You don't have to care. Nobody has to, right? The beloveds do. I'm glad for that. Okay, we'll probably talk a little bit more about this as a wrap-up in the last session. Okay, we talked a little bit about that. We might touch on it again. No. Right, simple answer, no. Yeah. Call it what you want. It's not that. Let's see. What we'll learn through even this graph sequence, which isn't a heavy graph sequence, will give you a bit more information on that. Yes, science, and yes, God, etc. And what God? This will give you an answer to that. Do they break up relationships? We might touch on that again. We kind of covered that already. Where is the love? What's really neat is, for every time I've heard that question being thrown at me by certain people who say it in a certain nasally tone when they're saying it when they have people like Thetans and Tothians hanging out in their fields with them, I've always been like, what do you really mean by that? What love are you missing? Because this is all about love. But where is the love? With this, now I know where it is. I know exactly where it is. It is that field. It is the Aya field. That is the endless, eternal love, the infinite, eternal love field of God Source. It is a living God Source consciousness field. And that is literally the location of where is the love. And we are embodying that progressively. So we finally found the love. I was kind of happy about that. So next time, if anybody says that question, just go, it's right here. And beam it at them. And I have a feeling we'll probably learn a bit more about orb phenomena when we do the next session's information about the orbs of Aya, or whatever they call them on the other page. Next one, please. We'll go back to who are the guardians. In a nutshell, this will be in your chart packs or your handbooks. Yeah. Basically, who are they? The CRIS councils listed below are all active members of the GAM-CEO. Each council has a massive number of other raceline collectives that exist as members within the collective of each council, okay? So this is just the basic councils we're dealing with. Now, you'll notice they have locations with them. And if you're not familiar with the maps and the structures that we've spent 10 years learning, that's a location? What's that word? It's a location? Where is that? You'll learn a little bit about that when we go through the graph sequence that we're going to go through. But basically, between 1997 and 2000, the first level of councils that we were working with were from the D12 level in this time matrix, which means in the Milky Way time matrix, which is actually called the Aquinas matrix. It's part of the Aquinas matrix. Aquinas is M31 that we fell from. D12, Elohai Elohim, the D11, Seraphai Seraphim, and the D10, Brahmarama, which are the founders races for this matrix. So they were literally the Christ founders races that seeded the life field into this matrix. And the whole story of those guys is in, I forget which, I don't know, it was early stuff, like in 2000 we were getting that information. So all of that stuff on who they are and what they are, that's all published somewhere. I just can't remember which place it is. It might even be in some of the Cathara stuff, the early Cathara, or maybe the Templars manual. I think it appeared in Templars manual, actually. Then, so if you want to know more about who they are, and this is above and beyond all of the race lines that are identified in the Voyagers books. All right, so they talked a little bit about the Elohai and all of those, but once you get up to here, this is where the work started to go beyond the Voyagers books, where the first upstep, and this is the dates that those upsteps occurred, was this is the first one from these guys to these. These were the three Llanas races, which are the Ram Llanas, the Huachi Llanas, and the Grand Llanas. We met them in Peru on our first Peru trip. And they are from the primal light. It's this PMC that refers to the Particum universe that we are in, of the primal light field. So they're in the primal light field, which corresponds with dimensions 13, 14, and 15. All right, so we went from the D12, 10, 11, and 12, which is called density 4, to D13, 14, and 15, which is called density 5. All right. Next up step was to the Eka Iani. I won't try to explain to you what an Eka is until I show you the maps, and then you'll be able to see what an Eka is in relation to what a simple matrix is, a time matrix, or a PCM universe. Right. Now, in 2002, we upstepped 3 to the Akasha level, which is the next level up from the Eka levels in the maps. Right? We're going locations, going up, the scales, actually up and out, larger. These were called the Iane. All right, and this was just the MUG numbers, the mission upgrade numbers that those mission upsteps or GA upsteps came in on. All right. This one, upstep 4, was in 2003. And this is when we actually did grid work in Andorra and Barcelona, Spain, and this is where the upstep for this was given, and we met from the Ettore side. Ettore refers to our side of the time matrix, which spins, it has a base clockwise spin. It has its counterpart that spins counterclockwise, which is called the Adore system with an A. All right, so this is the Ettore on our side. Eka, Akasha, which means from the Eka and the Akasha level, these were called the Ad Andrea, and from the Adore side, the Eka, Akasha, Adonai. So we met the Ad Andrea and the Adonai there. Then these ones, now these guys have all sorts of abilities to manifest, demanifest, and ascend and all that kind of stuff to various levels within the greater structure of the cosmic matrix. But when we got to these levels, this is where we were dealing with beings that were beyond confinement to physical form. They can choose form materialization at will or choose not to have it. In other words, they have reached a level of evolution where they are made of consciousness, and they can form that consciousness into biological forms at will and demanifest it if they choose. Some of them have civilizations in whatever level of matter state they are choosing to be in and do keep physical forms because they enjoy it. And others decide to not keep physical forms and just use them on occasion, materialize them on occasion to interact with people who still do and don't have the choice yet, like us down here, right? So these up here, this is where you're getting into masters. Now, just when you talk about, the beloveds like to not use the term ascended masters because it's been highly, highly abused on this planet. When you hear all the other stuff, there's not one thing out there that talks about an ascended master that is talking about anything above D5. Now, D5, if we go back up here and look at we were starting, the ones that were giving this information to begin with, we're starting with D12. They didn't call themselves ascended masters. They called themselves avatars. These guys call themselves rishi. They're not ascended masters. Now, there's a bunch of other people out there running around the Metatronic system, and they don't know they're running around the Metatronic system, but they're saying, oh, a D5 ascended master. Well, okay, it ascended to D5. That means it went up to D5. That is not an actual ascended master. All right. So the levels that we're dealing with of the consciousness, that's why there's so much detail to the information that we've been given. This is simple when your consciousness is up here. This stuff is easy. This is like kindergarten, what they're teaching us. But when you're looking at it as a model, is a bunch of humans that can't remember where they came from or where they're going or the fact that they have a bioenergetic field, and you're dealing with a bunch of false ascended masters that are running around saying, they're like God because they got to D5, no wonder the work looks a bit complicated. There's a little trick that they tend to use with some of the false teachings. They'll tell you, keep it simple, stupid. The devil is in the details. You know what? It's the opposite. God is in the details. God created the details. Do you really think if you look at a tree and the amazing root structure it has and the amazing branches and leaves it creates, even looking at a tree, do you really think the devil did that? That's very, very detailed. It's very, very beautiful. And it's very, very filled with love. If you ever hugged a tree and you felt it hug you back, there's an amazing consciousness in trees. We take the opposite stance. We don't keep it simple, stupid. We keep it as simple as still holds the truth. But we don't simplify things to where you lose meaning and it's easy to twist meaning. And we will show detail, because it was in the detail that the beloveds could show us what the Metatronic stuff was doing. Because it showed what the whole creation structure was, what the forms were, what the sacred geometries were, how they're supposed to work, and it was all very coherent. And then it showed what was actually being done with it to twist it. So those other teachings are actually distortions of these teachings. So without knowing the details, you would never be able to tell. So if anybody tells you the devil's in the details, tell them to think again. Maybe it's God that's in the details, and maybe that's just a trick of the devil telling you that. So anyway. So we've got all of these races. Now we're up to the ones who can manifest and demanifest, materialize and dematerialize at will. And they do have materialized civilizations because some of them choose that type of existence because they enjoy it. And the further up you go into ascension, the more you realize the purpose in being is being, and being closer and closer to the God consciousness state, which is absolute joy. There's a lot of teachings that, unfortunately, they're like, let's say for the Buddhist teachings, for example, there's some wonderful, wonderful teachings in the Buddhist teachings. But when it comes back to the core, there's also things being told that there's one, existence is anguish. Yeah, nirvana technically means extinction. Yeah, they're dealing with a different set of a different path of evolution that is part of this path. But those teachings, the Buddhist teachings, they can be very helpful to us on the Christic path, some of them. But you have to be able to see which ones really don't apply to the Christic path that you're on. They're good if you find yourself in a fall system. And you are going to fall, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. They're very good for making peace with that and still holding your integrity. They would be like for a Christ fall or even for a Kali Rama step back, path of evolution. And some of the teachings can, be for the ascension. You can do some of the meditations and some of those things. But some of the other ideas are just not at all what the ascension path teaches. Joy is, now they would say, oh, joy is an emotion, that's just a lower form. Source experiences joy. Now it's a joy that while you're in one little body, you'll never be able to know exactly the joy that source consciousness it feels unto itself. But source does feel. Not little emotions like we do, with massive ones. We can't even fathom what they must be like. But the more and more we bring in the Aya, the essence of that consciousness field, the more we will understand and probably be able to put less and less words on those levels of joy, of absolute love, of absolute forgiveness, of absolute eternal beingness. Because that is the objective that the Christic path and the ascension path takes us on. Not to get to the point where we can detach ourselves because existence is anguish. It is anguish under certain conditions, but that isn't how it was eternally created. Anguish has to do with when the eternal creation flow has been progressively shut down to where you are left with limited flow, limited resources, and moving toward fall. So I just wanted to point that out. We are aiming for the joy, for the love, all of those things. That it's not about rising above them so you don't care about them anymore. Even desire. If Source did not have desire for creation, nothing would be in existence in the manifest bodies of God's Source. So desire is a natural aspect of Source, just as is love, just as is joy, just as is intelligence and awareness. So anyway, I wanted to point that out because some spiritual traditions will teach you that detachment, progressive detachment, where you really just don't care and won't be ruffled and therefore you don't suffer anymore, that is the ultimate to aim for. While we're still in this system here, we still have a choice to aim for something higher. And you can take some of the good from those paths because there's some great teachings. In every path, there are some great teachings. But those paths are not teaching the whole picture in order to get to the level of ascension that we are referring to. So you can take the best of any path, be it Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or Hindu or Islamic or whatever. Take the good, see where that part can support you in your path of going even higher. You don't have to stand against the other teachings. When it comes to Merkabas and Death Star Merkaba teachings, you don't have to stand against them either. You just stand with the Christ and say, well, I choose to spin my Merkaba this way, that's all, and I know why I choose to do that. So, but everybody has free will. People who want to do the Metatronic way have the absolute freedom to do that. And Source feels the same about that. Source gave them the freedom to make that choice in the first place. They will come home anyway, so Source doesn't feel like it's losing anything, because eventually they'll go back by space dust return. It's all in the experience. We all were given equally and created equally in terms of value from Source, and we all came from the same consciousness field, and we will all ultimately go back. The choice is ours, whether we will live that as a joyful experience of becoming whole again, or as a progressively diminishing experience that eventually brings us into a space dust return. But we will all meet back in the center again anyway. Anyway, so these are some of the things that at the core of the teachings that we stand for. This is some of the things that that it represents. Let's see. I'm just going to go really quick up these because you can read these, and you can read them in your chart packs when you get them. We went from, all right, these are the ones that are beyond where they can manifest and demanifest. We've got the Hathor. They're from the inner hub domains, the inner domain hubs. Now, if you don't know the maps and all those things, you're not going to know what's a hub, right? It has to do with the structure of the cosmic matrix, and a part of that would be referred to as hubs. And I'll try to point those out quick when we go through the diagrams quickly. So we have the hubs. We picked those guys up in Morocco when in 2005 during Demon Fest 1. Yeah, it was a rough trip, right? Yeah. A good thing the Hathors were there. Next one was in June of 2006, and where we upstepped to the M31 Eartha. Now, M31, again, is the Andromeda galaxy that the Milky Way, a very long time ago, actually spiraled out of because of a fall. It began to fall. It is a falling system. So M31, Andromeda, okay, from, it's like a, kind of like a counterpart. I almost said twin, and it's not twin exactly. Almost a counterpart planet to Earth is a place called Eartha. And the Eartha and Sala, that Sala is a counterpart to what would be our sun, which is called Sol. All right, so we have Eartha, Sala. There's a race called the Bendi, another race called the Aquiferian, both of which are part of the Adashi councils. When you see the word Adashi, it means return. It means those cycles that after you do the 4 Kali Yugas coming outward from source, you do the turnaround if you're ascending and go back through 3 cycles of Adashi return back into source. So when you see the word Adashi, it means that they are councils that have made the turnaround already and they're back in those cycles of at various stages of going back into source, which means they are really ascended masters. That is what ascension is. When you go through that turnaround, which I'll point out in some of the diagrams, that is when you actually qualify for being called an ascended master. And the beloveds prefer the term Adashi adepts because it is more accurate and it doesn't get entangled with the twisted meanings that the words ascended masters have been used to misrepresent here. So they prefer the word adepts. All right. Okay, so this is where we met these guys. Then in 2008, January 2008, we met from the same area, the Anshutesa hub, which is another center point. A hub is a center point in a matrix. The Anshutesa hub and adjugate, I'll show you what adjugate means when we look at the diagrams, A10 Buddhaya Adashi councils. So 2 more Adashi councils. We met the Anshutesa hub ones and we met the Buddhaya Adashi councils. Next, 2008, we met the Median Earth. And that I'm not even going to go into for new people because there's certain workshops that cover that extensively. So if you want to know what's the difference between net Earth that we're on, median Earth, higher Earth, lower Earth that we're on, that is net Earth, and various other things that have to do with the splitting of the Earth planes. All right, same Earth, but different plane splits from the original of what the structure here was before it became damaged. So these guys, median Earth is another word you could put there is ascension Earth. It's a portion of Earth that the gates from here will open into, but they first have to open into a place called Aurora Earth. And Aurora Earth is a set of gates that interface between this Earth set of planes and the set of planes that are the median Earth set of planes, which are the next stage up in this progressive ascension that we are, we're opening the gates to put it simply. We met there, the Zione, and I love these guys. I've known these guys for a long time. They used to come to me in childhood and stuff in like etheric form. The Zione, you could also call them the merfolk, like mermaids and mermen and merchildren and things. They have the ability to choose whether they will take on an aquatic hominid form or a land hominid form. They can also, some branches of them can actually choose to just be fish, but they're kind of born like fish are born and those kind of things. But they're lovely beings and they're quite beautiful. They're very, when they do their human thing, like their hominid thing, they look very human, but they're very, let's just say they look like what we would consider models, that kind of thing. They're very beautiful. And they're just hugely loving. And then you have the Aquiferi, and these are both Adashi councils. The Aquiferi come in a lot of different forms. And again, all of these don't have to take on form. They choose to, and they can also dematerialize it if they want to. When we get to 2009, we started even further up steps. These are the Ashale 3. Now, the word Ashale has to do with, remember I said there was net Earth where we are. Then you have the Aurora Earth that is the next set of gates to go through to get to median Earth, which is ascension Earth. Then there is what was called the host star, that in the Mentia rescue mission, that the fragment of Terra that is called Earth was actually host seeded into. So it is actually a star planet at a different level of density that Earth was seeded into, and it's actually it's beyond our plane structure. Like if you went up, 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 and up and out into space, you would start going into the plane structure of Ashale. You wouldn't see it, but you would be interfacing with it. So Ashale would be the next step up above ascension median Earth. All right, so their hubs of that place are called Ashalom, and like Ashale is the outer level, and then when you go to the center point of that as Ashalom. Here we met the Akwi and the Iridani, Akwiel. All right, so these are another set of two that we met. When we get up a bit further, we find that there's something called the floating Buddhas, which is a technique that I do believe they're going to bring in with the new people again tomorrow, and everybody that's done it before, we can do it again, and you know, because it's really good to bring in your good company, right? And we'll go over the floating Buddhist technique with you, with the new people tomorrow, and it's really how to get a team that will work with you if you want them to. And it's a team composed of 6 of these particular race lines. And they'll communicate with you, they'll assist you. They each have their own specialty of being able to do different things. Some are better like at healing, some are better at grid work, you know, that kind of thing. Some are better at training, like technical training, that kind of thing. So we have the Floating Buddhas workshop. I forget where it is in the chronology, but it's back there, and that covers all of that, where we first met them. You can catch up with that by using the technique, so we'll be bringing that back in for everyone to do, but it will be the first time that the newcomers have an opportunity to meet the Floating Buddhas. And there's a reason they call them Buddhas. It's not because it's about Buddhism. It has to do with, I'll talk about the Bud, B-U-D, when we have the structure diagrams up, okay? Because that will make it simpler. The people that know this information, they know what the Bud means, the Buddha. It's at the center of something, and I'll show you what that is in structure, because without the diagrams, I will probably lose you of what I'm talking about. But when we're talking about the Buddhas, we're not talking about Buddhas of Buddhism. All right? The concept of the Buddha, I actually collect little Buddha statues because there's something about that peaceful, like sitting cross-legged, peaceful stance kind of thing that does have to do with these layers of your own self. You all have a Buddha level of self that you can access, and a number of Buddha levels of self. So we'll talk about that a little bit, not extensively in this workshop, but as we go through the diagrams. Let's see, who else? Where am I? Right here, we met those guys. Okay, next one's in April of 2009. That was when we did the big drum circle, the first one at Sarasota Beach, Siesta Key Beach. We met from the Middle Earth, which is a different place than Net Earth, and yeah. So this is why the maps come in handy. So you have any idea where all these, these versions of Earth are. These aren't even probable versions of Earth. Probabilities are something different that are part of the structure too. These aren't even parallel Earths. Parallels are something different that are part of the structure too. Parallels have all of these type of things in them as well. So the structure is huge. They've showed us with the maps, with the structure of creation, the structure of the cosmos. It is huge, and that's why if you try to read this without some interpretation, you're just coming in and you go, what the heck are they talking about? How many Earths are flying around? Well, maybe they're probabilities. No, we're not talking about those when we use these words. We use other words to talk about probable Earths and those kind of things. So it is a huge structure of understanding. You don't have to understand all of it. What you do need to understand to benefit from the technologies and to actually grasp what you're having an opportunity to become a part of is just some basics of the structure that help you to have the big picture of what our little tiny existence down here on Earth is connected to, the cosmic matrix, and that we're going to see a little bit of that because it will help to conceptualize what we're talking about. You don't have to know every little Earth from every other little Earth and those kind of things to make this work for you, but it does help to know that they are there and the potential for them is there of other Earth versions and those kind of things. Next upgrade was, we already talked about those. Did I talk about? No, I didn't name these yet. The Idanai Mashaya Ajuna. These were the Ajuna guys. These are ones that actually, they exist as conscious air, but when they interact with us, because we tend to have a hard time conceptualizing talking to conscious air, they manifest as like just kind of white light beings when they interact with us. And they're also known as the gifting wizards, they can be very helpful. And they're from actually a place referred to as the Edans. And that's different than Eden. The Edans are, if you can conceptualize of us being in the outer domains of creation, and before there was a place called the middle domains of creation. The middle domains are where the Edans are. They're called the Edans. Then there's, of course, the inner level of creation, and then there's a core level of creation, and then there is source. This is part of the expansion cycles coming back, literally coming into manifestation from source. So they were in the middle domains. We are in the outer ones, the furthest away from source, where we make the turnaround to start coming back. So we met the Ajuna. We met, who else? We met the Mashayahana hub councils of the Aquarian matrix, which when you see the maps, it will help to know where they are, because the Aquarian matrix is a place, and the hub councils are, again, are part of that hub structure that all matrices have. They're part of the Tri-Universal Mashayahana priest caste. When you see this tri-matrix and tri-universal stuff, there's enough in the chronology, enough definition stuff in the chronology when you get into the section that covers the 12 tribes classes that will help you understand who they are and how, where they came into our history, what historically, where they are. They're from about 450 billion years ago. That's like our relationship with them. They're much older than the human race, but they have always been a part of our race lines and connected with us. So some of that's explained in that document that you will get, so you can read up on it. And of course, it's already been hugely explained in various other workshops. There's tons of stuff in the other workshops. So here we met the Mashayahana hub councils of Aquarian matrix. And these are considered the tri-universal, which means 3 universes, and not just universes, they're actually 3 Akasha levels, which is above a universal level. When we use the word Veka, Veka is equivalent with a universe. So there are multiple Vekas within a larger thing that's called an Akasha. And then there's multiple Akashas in something larger called an Akasha A. And then there's more Akasha A's in something bigger, the cosmic matrix, that's called the Akasha Aya. So there is this huge structure that helps you conceptualize, helps you understand the maps. You are here. Where's God? Right? First of all, I know, yes, God is here, God is with us, but where's the rest of creation? Is there a structure to dimensionality? Oh yeah, there is a huge, massive, beautiful one. So anyway, the more you understand about this work, the more you know what these kind of words mean as far as where these matrices are, what tri-universal, what tri-akasha means. Now in January of 2010, we had another upstep 9, 2 what are called the Tri-Universal Mashayahana Master Councils, which would be councils above the regular priest caste councils of that same council group. In the last workshop, we had upstep 10 to the 6 YAS adept councils. Now, the adepts are Adashi, in the Adashi cycles of the Tri-Universal Mashayahana Master Councils of the Aquarian Matrix of the Crystal River Host Temples of Era. And this lists there is 6 different groups of the YAS that have different names, and we each have, on our own Rishi level of consciousness, each one of us actually has a relationship with one of these, like an association with them, like as far as family, family association. So we had, in the last workshop, we did some techniques to actually discover which ones would work with us, and which ones we are connected to in our Rishi levels, and they have agreed to, members of them have agreed to work with us, just like the 6 Buddha ones that we call the 6 floating Buddhas. So we had a 7th one that works with us now. So the beloveds are actually teaching us progressively to open communication and contact with them. So it's not just one person standing up on stage trying to explain it all to you, where you can start getting your own private, conversations and interaction with them, so you can learn things on your own. Okay, now let's see, and with those guys, we did the YAS, and this time we are going one step up. And this one is to the eternal councils. This is going out of the matrix, where we're beyond the cosmic matrix structure and into a structure that is bigger than that interfaces directly with the God Source consciousness field, the eternal life, first creation, infinite consciousness field. And that gets into something called the structured bubble cosmoses, or I forget the word, it's plural cosmoses. But we will look at that in structures tomorrow when they actually show. You'll see the structures that lead up to that, and a lot of the people have already seen them, so we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on them. Plus, it's very early, late, early, whatever, and I don't want everybody to be asleep by the time it's activation time. So anyway, these are the councils that we are now coming on frequency line with. And this we have been working for 10 years, and probably many lifetimes, actually, because it's not just our own selves in this space-time, but our incarnational families. Time is simultaneous, and so is space. It looks like it's linear, and one thing comes before the next, while we're focused within a track of time. But it is actually, time isn't circular, it's spiraling. It spirals and expands and contracts. That's living time. It's, if you have dead time, like Metatronic time, it actually does circle, goes around and around and around, flips, goes around and around until it burns out. So anyway, we're dealing with structures of time and structures of space when we are dealing with this work. We're not just dealing with shapes of things, but we are dealing with our experience of time. When we talk about we're working with ourselves here, we also have, just in one 15-dimensional matrix, if the fact that you exist, and a lot of people that have been with us know this, the fact that you exist implies you have 1,727 other selves simultaneously in different space-time locations, right here, right now, in the space-time matrix. Now, if they were behind you in vibration, they would appear to be behind you in time. If they have a higher vibration, they would appear, or I think I used that wrong, I'm using vibration liberally there, not in the technical definition of the way they use it, but if they have more energy than you, let's use energy than you, right? If they have a little bit less energy quantum activated in their bodies than you do, they would be in a space-time location that you would perceive as past, and if they have more energy activation within their bioforms, they would be in a time frame that would appear to you as future. So you are, as a single incarnate, you are you, but you are a family, you are one of a family of 12 children that together comprise your soul. And that keeps growing upward. 12 souls comprise the oversoul. 12 oversouls comprise the avatar. 12 avatars comprise the rishi. All of these are you, are your levels of identity. But you as a single incarnate here are responsible for you. You are not indebted if you did something bad, if one of your others did something bad in other lifetimes. It is not your fault. You do not have to pay for it here, but what you do get, and this is what karma comes in, you get a bit of energetic bleed through right through the DNA template from that time period because of this larger structure that nobody sees, the spirit body structures that unite all of this. They unite space-time. It's united through that. Because of that structure, you will actually get bleed through from some of the lifetimes that are behind you in let's say, base pulse rhythm, where they're less quantum than you, and you will also get bleed through from the future. And this is where you end up picking up karmic patterns as well as memories. You can get very clear, sequenced memories from your other lifetimes, your past ones. You can even get points where you know when you died. When you open those memories, it will feel like you, because it is. But it's a different aspect of the consciousness than the you that is here. And if it did things that were bad, it was not you here that did those. There are ways to create DNA block where you can bring through the memories, but not take on the karma, because if you take it on, activate it in the DNA, it will start to outpicture in your life and you'll repeat the patterns again and again. So there's a lot of things to learn. Anyway, I'm trying to give a little crash course as we're going to, to the people that are new, to help them catch up with how broad the things are that we're talking about. Anyway, so we are going on to dealing with the Hayaru Cosmea. That's that word for the plural of cosmic matrices, Cosmea, of the cosmic Christ star master councils. When we see the word Christ star, it refers to the Christ star creation process, the natural process by which beings expand out, or cosmoses expand out from center and then hit through the 4 yuga cycles and turn around and go back in. That turnaround point is where you go through what is called Christ star ascension, where certain things happen, you become a Christed being, your body becomes Christed, your atomic structure transfigures. And from that point on, you would be considered, of the Christ star matrix, where you are now a Christ star ascended being. So when you see that, it applies to beings who have done that already. And these have done it on a very high level. So we're going to learn more about what that level is in the next session, but we're going to learn a bit as we go along here through the rest of these graphs. Oh my God, I won't talk as much on these graphs. I'm going to have to go fast, just so you know, the new people. It's important. It's not just for the new people, though, just so you know, the guys that have been with us a long time. You've seen these before. You've seen these graphs before. But there is a sequence, again, that is building to when the next level that are going to be given in the next session. It hits that sequence. So it fires. When you look at these graphs, it's like looking at codes, like we've explained before. When we look at the codes, we are actually turning on those frequency sets in our DNA template, our body fields, our biofields, all of that. So when we do a sequence of graphs, it's like looking at a sequence of codes that you can use it one day you use it with code A, B, and C, and then next day you use it where B, A, and D, those kind of things. You can use them for different purposes. So when we go through graph sequences, you are seeing coded mathematical information that will speak to literally your biofields and your DNA, even if you don't get it consciously. Even if you fall asleep in your chair and it's still floating through the room, you will still pick up some of it. It's best if you can stay awake, because then you actually consciously remember it too. But so just so you know, when you guys that have looked at these graphs before, understand that the sequence it's used in a little bit different way than it's ever been to lead up to when we all use the final graph that's on top of this that I have to, they're going to show me how to put it together for the next session. That is going to become a code. I do believe there's a new code that is going to be given. Yeah, at least the black and white version. It hasn't gotten its fancy on yet, but yeah. So, yeah, it's fancy. That's too. So, yeah, these are the floating Buddha ones. Just to go very quickly, that I was referring to for those who don't know. These are the races: the Aquaferi, the Zayané, the Aqui, the Aquiel, the Aquaferion, and the Bende Aquari. Right? They're the ones that a member from each of those groups will form what is called your floating Buddha team, which is they'll form a shield with you personally, and they will assist you in various things, journeys, and teaching you things if you want them to. It's an invite thing. The people who haven't done it will have a chance to do that tomorrow, and we can all have a chance to play with our own Buddhas if we've been working with them for a while. These, what you'll notice over here, I just want to point this out to the people that are new. There are certain, again, these are tones, right? If you want to call the Zayané, you don't go, Zayané. You can, they'll get it. But if you really want to open the frequencies to them in your biofield, you would use Kevo. Kevo is the vibration, right? And that vibration would trigger the codes that open those conduits to those frequencies in which they exist. All of these have different ones. You have the Sieta, the Kevo, the Are, the Kisa, the Etu, the Zata, right? These are the literal core encryption vibrations of the names of those races, which will put you online with their broadcast, their communication frequencies. So there's ways we use these in codes, in verbal codes and commands to open the gates. And we've used these in certain combination to have those orb fests, where if you use them and really build energy behind it, which means you're really bringing in more of those frequencies, that's when all those like orb photos were taken and those kind of things. So there's some real power to using the right words. Anyway, I just wanted to point out, I will give you a copy of this too in the chart pack, as long as Kinko's cooperates. Because what I'm looking at right now is if we get through all these graphs, I'll try to put them all in the chart pack. That's 49. There's 36 pages of the ones that we have to send out as soon as Jared, bless him, finishes proofing them. Yeah, he's proofing them, bless him. And they're all in 10-point type. So we will try to have all of this stuff for you. If not, these are published in other handbooks and various different workshops. But we will try to get you a copy of these so you know who they are, the basic thing, where they're from, the basic things, what they kind of look like because they choose to have a manifest form. And like some of them, like these are like bipedal, 3 to 8 feet tall. There's one really tall one. Which were they? I think it was these guys. 72 to 216 feet tall, average height. 144 feet. Hello. Good thing they can shape-shift their form, because sometimes when they'll come in to interact with you, they'll just shrink themselves down proportionately to your size, like bring that much of themselves in, so you're not like talking to the big toe of some monster giant being, right? Yeah. With these beings, just so you know, they will never, ever be pushy. They will never tell you what to do. They will never, ever offer to have sex with you in the astral. They will never, seriously, I mean, there's some weird stuff out there that does. There's some really dirty angels on the scene and stuff that really get into that. So there's a whole bunch of behaviors that you will just not find. And if you have anything trying to contact you that has behaviors that are anything less than appropriate, no, it is not one of ours. It is not the guardians. What it is something trying to come in on your field. Work more with the techniques, because everybody has stuff with them when they first start working with this. Progressively, we build the immunity. You will get the initial immunity, but you don't have your light bodies cleared yet, and you don't have various stuff. So there's certain levels of Metatronic stuff that everybody will have until they clear it. You'll get the first immunity level of that, where it can't take you beyond a certain level and drag you into full Metatronic activation. But that doesn't mean things can't harass you. If they're with you, they're still going to be with you. So anyway, if there's inappropriate type of behavior at all, we would say, a Christic being shouldn't do that. You're probably right. And just shut it down. Say, I'm not talking to you. And go. This is why the techniques can be very helpful. Go call on the ones you know you can trust, because they will never do those things, and they will help get those other things off you. So that's mostly for the new people, because the people that have been with us for a while have been progressively getting themselves more and more free from that kind of nonsense that kind of comes with the human package on this planet in this day and age. So anyway, you will get a copy of these. Tells you who they are and where they are located in the stack of Ascension Gate sets from where we're on Net Earth to Aurora Earth to Ascension Median Earth to Ashale to another place called Shala to finally Eartha 3, which is in the M31 Andromeda galaxy. Next one, please. These were the ones we met in the last workshop in Slider 7. These were the families of Wa. I'll put this in so you can read a bit about them too. And if you want to do the activations that go with them, you can, they're in the package that comes with the Slider 7 workshop. And the techniques are on the CDs, I believe, or DVDs. But you can run them there. But these are the names. You can also just use their names to call them. Like these are their tonal resonance names that you can use, like Shiwas, and I'll just name them so you can hear the names said in case you ever want to call on anybody. The Ilewas, the Sewas, the Iyurwas, the Tewas, the Hewas, and the Shiwas. And you can, find out more about them in Slider 7 if you want to, or once you have this in your tech pack, you can just play with the names and see what they're basic when they present to you, because again, they don't have to hold a form. They're choosing to use these forms for whatever reasons they know better than we do, that they're using these to interact with us down here at this time. Next one, please. I'm going to start going faster, so we have hope of ever getting to the point where we do the first part of the activation before we're all asleep. Okay, now this, all right, the Iyuga and Ieta cycles, the Akasha expansion and Adashi return cycles. Even in the Project Camelot interview, I did try to explain briefly what is ascension. You have to understand what basic evolution is to understand what ascension is. And there are basically, I'll show you another graph that I showed on that, but this is called the Christ Star eternal life creation cycle, which is the evolutionary cycle. If, say, there was the center here, then there are these 1, 2, 3, 4 cycles of expansion outward, at which point you go into a turnaround, the Christ Star turnaround cycle, which begins with what's called the Kalihara cycle, and then you go back into the Adashi return cycles. The cycles coming out are called the Ikashi expansion, away from source point, and then to turn around, and the Adashi cycles going back to source point. So it is evolution, where you source progressively moves energy outward from its center through the core, the core, the inner, the middle, and the outer domains. We are in the outer domains here. These cycles are referred to as Yuga cycles. There are 4 Yuga cycles expanding outward. We've got the Rale Yuga, the Ale Yuga, the Shale Yuga, and the Kale Yuga. And it's the Kali Yuga that they've been calling it in some of the old Sanskrit texts and all of that thing. That's what they're talking about, the end time cycle. And it's supposed to be a good end time. It's supposed to be an end time where you finish the cycle of growth and expansion and go through the Christ Star transition. You eternalize your atomic structure through transfiguration, and then go back as a Christed being through these cycles, the Adashi cycles of return. The time cycles associated with the Adashi cycles are called Ietas. So you have the expansion Iyuga cycles and the returning Ieta cycles back to source. So that is basically the simple process of that is evolution. That is what creation is about. Whether it's you as a person or whether it is a cosmos or a cosmeos, which is the multiple cosmic matrices together, it's the same process of expanding outward, from source consciousness field into individuation, and then progressively pulling from the spirit body more and more of those frequencies back in, expanding your form to the point where it can transfigure and go back into the natural state, from going into manifestation and materialization to the height and the fullness of materialization and manifestation in the Kali Yuga cycle, then progressively going into the stages of dematerialization and demanifestation. And these are what real ascendant masters are, the ones that are up in these cycles. Anything that's in any of the matrices down here, D5 is not high, D10 is not high. There are millions of sets, billions of sets of D5s and 10s and everything in between them in the structure of cosmic matrices. So this is the real path of ascension. Next one, please. There's that fly again. Found me again. Look at that, it's chasing me. Hey. All right, this is just a quick summary. We haven't covered these for a long time, but it's the creation evolution of eternal consciousness and form. These are some of the things we've talked about. There's what we call pre-Partakai creation cycle. Oh boy, what's a Partakai? That's where we go back to Keylontic science in the year 2000, and we learn about the physics. They've been teaching physics for a long time. They finally united the physics with the expanded spiritual teachings. So in this workshop, if you're new and you came because you wanted to hear the physics have been being talked about for 10 years. You'll get a general bit about the physics, but if you want the quantums of particles, or what is a Partakai, what is a Partakay, what is a Partakam, what is Partakai phasing, all of that stuff is in the other workshops. You're free to get them on the product list. We have been teaching this for a long time. So these things are part of that. We are now going into the high spiritual teachings that go with the high science teachings. We started with a bit of science, a bit of spirituality, and more of the science, and now we're coming back full circle into the big spirituality of what that science was about. So you won't have me going through all of these and going back and figuring out remembering what the quantum of a Partakai and a Partakay and a Partakam was, because they all have different numbers as far as quantum and power and thrust and all that. But we had a pre-Partakai creation cycle, what's called the Navena and the Nuvena Partakai birth cycles. The Sita Akushate cycle, the light-born cycle, the star-born cycle, the life-born cycle, the God-born cycle, the Big Bang. These are all processes by which from one point of intention, let's say, in the God source consciousness field, that eternal field, the Aya field, this is the word for the essence of it. In that field, there's a point of creation that starts, be it for a cosmos or for a being, and it starts with the first Partakai and then the second Partakai. There's a whole massive amount of information that's been given on how the light body grows. First, before that, first you have the spirit body grows from the first Partakai. Then you have the light body growing. Then you have the what's called the Rasha dark matter body growing simultaneous with the light body through what are called tachyon cycles, which are tachyon harmonic key generation cycles, which are quantum that manifests itself. It has the quantum, the eternal life structures have the ability to what is called phase, which means just say energy units bump together and they make sparks. Those sparks generate additional quantum than the quantum that was the original sparks had, so they continually generate their own quantum. That's the difference between an eternal life type of form and a finite life form that cannot generate its own quantum and has to suck quantum off other things in order to sustain its existence. Anyway, that was just a little side bit in there, just to wrap certain things up. So anyway, all these cycles have to do with, every one of these had huge chart spans that in various different workshops, you take one part, and that would be all the detail, and that would be given. All the detail in the next one, all the detail, and then how all they fit together. So there's a massive amount of information that combines the physics and the spirituality that is behind us. But these are the basic cycles we're going through. There's another chart that I really love because it helps to really conceptualize all those cycles together. Next one, please. I'm starting to talk fast because it's getting late, early, whatever it is. That's the next one. There should be another one in there. It's not supposed to be the next one. But it's not. Excuse us. To conceptualize all those cycles, there's a simple core creation sequence chart that helps to conceptualize them. We'll put this in your charts too so you can look at it more closely, because in other workshops we have detailed every bit of these things, of all of these words. We've detailed, you'd have like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 workshops on this section, and then this section, and then this section. I just wanted to show you these because we're going to look at spirit body structure and a tiny bit of light body structure just to get to the point where we know what we're aiming for when we are going for the Aya field, all right? So, and the structures of where we are in relation to where that field is, because that will give us the sequential little map of mathematics turning on in our DNA and our fields that will lead us to be able to do the activation that has to do with anchoring the dream stream at the end of this. So anyway, right here, this cycle here is the spirit body gestation cycle. It is from here that the spirit body starts to grow. Now, we don't have the ones, this was never typeset yet, from, I think it was back in Tenerife, and I think that was 2005. I believe it's around there that we introduced this chart, but in relation to just a single life, from the point of conception, where a sperm and an egg come together. That would actually happen down here. That would be the point where sperm and egg come together. Then all these certain things happen, and they were going from like the first 12 minutes to the first 12 seconds to the first 12 minutes. So they could be used. This is also what happens when conception occurs. But on a larger scale, as far as universes and cosmoses and stuff, there's a general format, and that the numbers are much different than seconds and things, where first you have where the first particle would be born, the first energy unit of consciousness. Then you would have where the second particle gets born in here. When you get two particle together, it forms something called the triad, and that is where phasing can start to happen between those two energy units. And that's where generation of more quantum and more sparks can come. From that point, after you have particle 1 and particle 2 that birth themselves, and a whole bunch of other neat things that happen in here too, like the Akashic record first cell, the Ekashic record first cell. This talks about the Hall of Records and all those things. The structures we went through with these were amazing. And it really, like the words you hear floating around the New Age movement, like, oh, the Akashic record and, the Hall of Records and all that stuff, it explained what these things actually are in terms of a planetary body or a cosmic body or your own personal body. So those things were there. But what we're going to pick up on with this one is just this part. I'm not going to go through the trimesters. There's 4 trimesters to what is called the Siddha cycle. The Siddha cycle is the point where the spirit body first grows. The spirit body has a different type of energy than the light body, which has a different type of energy than the atomic body. So the atomic body, if you were looking at it from conception, does begin with that first little donated quantum of the egg and the sperm. That's where you get your body cell that you have to release in order to get free. All right. But anyway, yeah, I could go on and on for ages, and I'm trying not to do that. But anyway, when we get up to here, you have these things that occur first from the point of conception, be it conception of source decided to create something, so it conceived the thought and started the particle, or from egg and sperm coming together. When we get up to here, this is where the spirit body structure begins to evolve and grow. And when the Siddha cycle is done, then there is like this boom point, and what's called the Illumeridana spirit body births. And when that births, at the center of it, there's something called the Taran light seed. It's a little light seed, and it is actually a phase generator where it sparks and makes quantum, progressively. And once that occurs, and meanwhile, of course, you have a baby body growing if you're talking about this in terms of pregnancy. This is in the womb after the conception point. You do not have a spirit that is in that body yet. All right? It would blow the body apart. It is so small. Conception happens over here. Fetal integration happens over here. Fetal integration is where the spirit attaches itself and begins to put itself into the fetus form, attaching itself to the atomic structure, forming the jari, that part that sticks to the atoms, the part that needs to be set free if a body's not going to have to reincarnate into the same space-time location. All right, so I'm really condensing a lot here, just so you know, but hopefully it makes some sense. Anyway, this is where the spirit body births, and the light seed inside of it. Then you go through what are called tachyon cycles, which again are more quantum generation cycles, to put it very, very simply. And you go through a series of those. This is the birth point. Now, that's called the Big Bang point. That's where, in a physical pregnancy, that is where the frequencies would raise to a certain level where the spirit body is already born, right? The light body forms through this cycle here. So the light body structure has been born up to a certain point. It has the Taran light seed, and that point here is where the dyad, which is the next level of the light body, births. When the dyad births, there's too much energy in the body to keep it in the host body, so it has to birth out. And that's the point that a natural birth would occur as far as babies coming out of bodies and things. And also, it's a natural point at which, if you're talking about planets and solar systems, it's also the Big Bang point. There is a Big Bang point, except there's lots of stuff that comes before the Big Bang. It's not the Big Bang that starts the cosmos. It's a part of a chain of things that start the cosmos. So once you get to this point, the birth point, what I want to look at when we look at the maps that we're going to look at, because we're going to look at structure in order to understand the maps, in order to understand where we're going to draw this frequency from and where we're going to go on our journey to get to the dream stream. Did I say that too fast? Yes. I'm sorry. The wave is coming through pretty fast. I apologize for the new people if I'm talking too fast for you. I'll try to slow it down a bit. Jeez. Oh. People get used to me after a while, and the hearing just kind of follows. They go, yeah. Okay, anyway, we're going to look at just what happens, what the structures that form in these two cycles. Because it is from understanding the basics of those that you can understand the maps and you can understand the structure of your own form as far as your multidimensional identity and those kind of things. So we know what we're... There's that fly again. It will not leave me alone. Yeah, I hope it's not one of those little micro robotic things that they send around. Get off. Get off. Okay. Ah. Where'd it go?
On your arm.
Arm's okay, just don't like it on my nose. So anyway, at this point, when the dyad of the light body structure bursts, that is another phase cell, but a much more powerful one. It's twice the amount of the first one. This one has actually only, like, say, 3 light cells that generate quantum. At a certain point, there it goes again, through these harmonic key generation cycles, enough quantum is generated where it actually pulls into the center, actually. It actually disappears out of creation and pops back out again. And this is actually 6. You just can't see them. It's 2 of these put together, but 2 of them are at the center. So it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there's actually 6, 2 of these in that. So there's a quantum expansion that occurs through the process of tachyon key cycles. Each of these, there would be a different level of the light body grows. You would have here the dyad, here the myad, here the monad, here what's called the Amareya 48 unit cell. Here you would have, and this is going back around, like conception started here. This is coming back around to the second round, right? Let me see. Here you'd have the Adon, which would have 144, not just 3. It'd have 144 cells up to this point. Here you'd have the 1,728 cells of the Edon. And up here, you go back into the formation of what's called the seed atom, and there's different names for that depending on whether you're in the core, inner, middle, or outer domains. But the unici seed atom is referred to as the inner light body structure, and up in these places is where you would have the unici form. You'd also have something called the aton that forms here that has 20,736. What used to be 3 here, now you have that number of these. So this is the quantum growth. This is what a living, organic, Christic light form does, or body form. There's also a process that goes with that we'll see in a minute that has to do with what are called birthday cycles. And birthday cycles are literally where, once the structure is born, there's a process of bringing in the frequencies from each of those layers progressively of light body. It's a flyby. Not the usual flyby we look for, though. Maybe the fly wants to ascend, whatever. It's taken in the teachings. Whenever possible, I try not to kill things. Like bugs. If I have to, like the flea infestation that was making our cat sick. Sorry, exterminator had to be called. Nothing personal. You know what I mean? But I don't have to whack flies just because they're annoying me. I don't have to be annoyed. I can consider it fun, and I will. Anyway, Anyway, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go just to the next graph to tie it in with this one, and then just do a really short bathroom break, if that's all right with everybody. I hope you don't mind. Yeah, because we're up late anyway. We're going to be up late, and I apologize for that, but it is what happens sometimes. So I will give just a little bit of break so we can do a quick bathroom and then come back or whatever. Okay, next one. This is the birthday chart I was telling you about. It's called the Density Integration and Transfiguration Points chart. If you took one of those cycles that you just saw on the other chart, each one of these would be like that. Now, you'd have all those mini little lines that show the little tiny trimesters and harmonic key cycles, but the main cycles are these. They're called octant cycles, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different cycles. And you can do this by years. There's actually here it says right here is the birth point, like that we talked about. That would be right here. say if it was a fetus, that would be where it birthed out from the body. And then each one of these would be a yearly cycle of growth. The yearly cycles of growth occur because there's something called the process of frequency accretion, where the light body and the spirit body progressively bring in and open into the cellular structure the frequencies that they are carrying at various levels, starting with the lower frequencies and progressively building up. So literally each year, say of a child's life, or the life of a solar system or a sun or a star or planet or whatever, it does this accretion cycle where the spirit body and the light body structures begin to transfer or translate their energy into base matter, where it would turn it into matter. And at the end of one of these cycles, just one of them, you get born here and go through this is birthday 1 would be here, birthday 2, birthday 3, birthday 4, birthday 5, birthday 6, birthday 7, birthday 8, where you're coming back around. This is called a transfiguration cycle. And that is where the atomic structure that was brought into matter, where Jari was attached to atomic structure, and atomic structure grew as the Jari and the light body frequencies came in, then there would be a transfiguration point where a portion of that energy would actually transfigure and go to the next level of density, and you'd start bringing in the atomic structure of the next level of density. When I speak about densities, most people that work with us know this. Density is, for example, density 1 is dimensions 1, 2, and 3. A density is a three-dimensional band. So we're in density 1 down here, dimensions 1, 2, and 3. Density 2 is dimensions 4, 5, and 6. Density 3 is 7, 8, and 9. Density 4 is 10, 11, and 12. And density 5 is 13, 14, and 15. That is the base structure of a 15-dimensional matrix, or a 15-dimensional even identity. Your identity is structured that way too. So anyway, you would go through each of these cycles. If this was your birthday thing, when I mentioned in the introduction that at the age of 33 would be the normal point if our angelic human DNA was working right. At the age of 33 is where we would reach our Christ star turnaround point. We could go through what was called the Kalihara transition and go into the Adashi cycle. So we would never age past the age of 33. We would have our 33-year-old body at its height of expansion is when that would be made eternal, and and we would go on into the Adashi cycles from there. So I just wanted to show you the connections with these, because it has to do, again, with the structures of the spirit body and the light body, and they all have to do with the structures of space and time. And the structures of space and time have to do with understanding where we are right now when we look at the loadout schedule and those kind of things, which is that 200-year we're being evacuated schedule, right? These all tie together. And the cycles tie in with the processes of Partakai phasing, quantum building of the light body, spirit body, etc. And the processes tie in with the space-time issues that we are facing on this planet and in this solar system and in this galaxy. So understanding the basic of these things, or at least how they fit together, can help you have a picture of what you're really looking at in reality right now. It's a picture that is much bigger. It is the big picture, that much bigger than anything is teaching you out there. You will not find the picture this big in science, even at the height of it right now. They can theorize and stuff, but they have no idea. The closest they come is what is called bubble universes, and that was on, I think last year sometime on Discovery magazine. It actually featured an article on bubble universes, and it's a theory that is becoming more popular in science. That has to do with bubble universes floating around, and maybe they can crash into each other, and maybe there's more than one universe. Well, kinda. There are bubble universes, yes, it's a good concept. But there's something called the structured bubble cosmos, and that is what we're dealing with. There's not just random bubbles floating around that could crash into each other on occasion as universes collide. That can happen in black hole systems where they're no longer connected energetically to the natural structure, but there is a natural structure of the spirit body spirit body light body structure that actually is the bubble cosmos concept, but it is ordered in a very neat way where there's natural interactions and pass-throughs between all of them, and this is where you get gate sets too. So anyway, back to this chart. I keep going, little tangent over there, sorry about that. the birthday chart is not only, does not only apply to a person's birthday from the time when they were conceived and they get born. Okay, that cycle you saw before is where you had the, Partha created, spirit bodies created up here, light bodies created, and bang, you're born, right? And then you go into your first to your 8th birthday, your 0 point to your 8th birthday, and then you'd have your first transfiguration point, where you begin to transfigure the atomic structure into the next density level and begin bringing the next density level's frequencies into atomic structure. After you go through the density 1 level, density 2 level, density 3 level, and density 4 level, that is when you've got your 4 densities of your avatar in your body, and you would be able to then go through the Kalihara transition and begin the process of going into Adashi return cycles with the transfiguration 0.5. So this cycle applies to cosmoses and it applies to persons. And it's the natural Christic cycle. The cycle gets messed up with the Metatronics, and our planet has been running progressively on the Metatronic twisted cycle, which is called the sextant time cycle. I won't go into that now. I covered it a tiny bit in the Camelot, Project Camelot interviews, and there's other workshops that has been covered much more extensively. So I'm just trying to show you the way it works, all right? Not worrying about the way it doesn't work or what's not working. We've covered that enough. We're looking at the way things fit together, the way they work, and how it applies to you and to the cosmos and to everything in between. Next one, please. I'll just put the next one up and then we'll go. I won't talk about it too much. I'll just say what we're going to talk about. That birthday chart that you just saw, this basically shows you at what ages various things occur. There are leaps. When you hit those transfiguration points where you're supposed to transfigure part of the atomic structure, they are the leap cycles. So you would actually leap into the next density level of accretion and growth. So this just goes with those, and it shows the ages, and I will put this in there too. These things have been published in other things before. Okay, I'll leave it off on this one, and we'll just take a break right now, and then we'll come back to this one. All right, so like I say 10 minutes, but it's usually 15. All right, thank you. Ding, 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 ding. Round 2, starting. When we were out on break, a funny thought dawned on me. Especially for anybody that's coming in new or anybody that watched the Camelot Project. I remember there was a funny comment made by somebody, one of the detractors, is, oh great, we got a yuppie that data streams, right? They said something about that, because I had explained the process of Keylontic data streaming. And this happens to me all the time in workshops. I talk about riding the wave and the whole bit, the wave of information that comes. Well, when I went to the little phase where all of a sudden I was talking like really, really fast and it was going to be really like that, that is a perfect example of data streaming, Keylontic data streaming. When the wave releases from that big energy ball that I've talked about in the orientation, when it starts to release and come through, it literally is a waveform. And at certain points, it moves very, very quickly. And that was a perfect example for anybody that might have seen the Project Camelot interviews and what is data streaming. That is a perfect example. When the wave comes through, it's me in here. I'm fully conscious. But when that data and the frequency it carries enters my consciousness and my fields and translates through my body, it just comes out and I speak faster, and when the pulse of the wave gets faster, I get faster, and usually the hearing of people gets faster too in the shield, which is kind of neat. It just dawned on me as a good example of Keylontic data streaming. Yes. Anyway, can we have that, please? Thank you. All right. Isan and I were also discussing something that we're on, what page? 8?
I don't know, really.
No, the 14's crossed out because I had to pull them from various other programs. I think we're around about 8 or 9 out of 49. And because he's so good with numbers, he said, even if you spent 2 minutes on every other one of them, it would still be 2 more hours just to finish that. And I'm going, yeah, right. I don't think I've ever spent 2 minutes on a graph. So there may come a point. Now, if not, you'll just hear the wave going really, really, really fast again, right? Where I sound like a chipmunk, right? Alvin and the Chipmunks, teaching ascension. But there may come a time, and I have a feeling there is, where there's a certain set of the graphs that I can touch on very quickly and then and take them out and use them as portions of the program that we're going to be doing this evening. So if I get that nudge that, aha, here we can do that with that, and just shift that over, where it plugs in more perhaps to things we'll be expanding on in the evening session, then I might do that, just so you know. But anyway, there's still 49 minus 9 to go. 40. Anyway, I'm still on cycles, just trying to, have us all retouch base, I don't think that's a word, with the cycles of growth and expansion. This cycle that we looked at before in terms of the birthday chart is also, in a larger context, the cycles by which we can track the stages of the loadout schedule, which is it runs to... The gates actually close. The whole cycle runs past when the gates close here, but we are over in this stage of the planetary and galactic relationships with the ascension cycle, or it is the last ascension cycle. Normally, it wouldn't be the last ascension cycle. When planetary grids and galactic grids are working the right way, these things are just perpetual. They continually do it. There's continually ascension cycles, and there's expansion cycles, and there's turnaround cycles, and it keeps going. When a system is going into fall, like the Milky Way is, there comes a point when that expansion and contraction doesn't happen anymore. So there is a point where there is a last wave of ascension that can go out before the gates close. The system stays where it is, where it fell, but it doesn't go through the evolution anymore. It stays until it burns out. That is what a black hole system does. That is what fall means, is the primal life force currents that normally recirculate and regenerate themselves through the natural processes of the living matrix. Actually, the fall matrix no longer can process most of those frequencies, so it gets stuck with just the frequencies it has until it burns them out. So that is what we're in right now, is the last ascension cycle. That it's 200 years now. It was like 223 years starting in 2008. Is when the gates will finally close. That doesn't mean the system is going to be dead. It means it's going on, the Milky Way system is on its way to dying. That can take many, many eons for that to occur, but it tends to go more quickly. Our solar system will experience it more quickly because the sun has entered solar bardo because of the core gates being forced closed on March 25th of 2007. So there still will be life on Earth. There still will be a life that can no longer, once the gates close, the life forms on the planet will shut down any potentialities of ascension codes they had. But because of the Metatronic activations that are occurring in 2012, that's going to happen to a lot of the life forms anyway, before the point of final gate closure happens. We're holding that ascension potential open on the planet and in our DNA, and for literally the human race and the angelic human race. This cycle chart, which is published before also, just simply shows the birthday chart, but on the larger scale, of the years we are moving through until certain things occur. Now, when we go over here, these are transfiguration points again. If we look at it here, in 2008, in January 2008, between December of 2007 and January of 2008, we entered this point that was called actually the Kalihara cycle. And that's the point where if you don't reach a certain level of frequency and base pulse rhythm, that you won't even enter the ability to go into the next stages that take you into Christ Starfire evolution. We were fortunate that because of the grid work that was done with our teams, we're not creating it. What we're doing is co-creating it. We're allowing the frequencies to anchor here, because without us and the people working with this, there would be no anchoring rods for these frequencies on this planet. So it's because the people that were working with the beloveds with this, and some of them are the ones that come to workshops. Others are ones that live all over the place. Some of them are in countries where they've never even learned to read or write, but they have the codes in their DNA. So it's not just the people that come to workshops. There's other people out there that are part of the Christic family too, that never heard of us and never heard consciously of any of these teachings. But because of that collective of the Aquafarian shield on the planet, that we did make the Kalihara point. It was a celebration because we actually made it to where we could start going into the Starfire ascension cycle, for the Christ Star ascension cycle. And we are right here, about in this area. This spot right here is where we'll be in May of 2013. So we're back in here somewhere in this cycle. We've just started the Barda phase of the stage 2 is called the Kali Krista cycle, and that runs from May of 2008 through 2047. We're only right here in this. right? 2047 will be over here. There are certain things that take place with, now if you remember, we've talked about structures, and we're going to go into those structures a little bit. You could put this chart of birthdays and the different octants or time cycles. You could put the structures of the bones and the balls on top of this, and it actually will show you where you can understand some of the things that occur at various points that are called folds. Now we started here. When we go through this cycle, this is a point that we're going to reach. I think it's about January of 2028-ish, right around there. Once we get over here to 2047, when we talk about the Mashayahana, or the Mashayanic fold, that is when we're going to see the graphs in a little bit, where there are two things called our hara bodies. There are actually 3 levels of them. It would just be like a circle here and a circle here on this vector line, right? It runs this way, where those 2 balls would come together into the center ball, and that is considered a Mashayahanic fold. Then they'd come back out again. When they go back into that center, they recharge, and it is at that point that we start picking up enough momentum. And it's at this point, too, that we begin the separation from the portion of the Milky Way that is not going to hold hold ascension, where it's going to go in its own direction. So right now we're here. We've got a lot of years before we get there. And there's a lot of things that happen before we get anywhere near there. This phase that we're in is called the Barda phase. At the end of the Barda phase of the Kali Krista cycle, this is when something called the Bardo chamber opens. Now the Bardo chamber we'll look at in some of the structures when we get to that. It has to do with a chamber of energy that runs through systems or beings. Our Bardo chambers run horizontally, front to back. Actually, it's only the back part of a big tube of energy that runs this way through us and connects us to the rest of our spirit body, light body, etc. anatomy. The front part is called one thing, and when I look on the chart, I'll remember what it is, because we're always talking about the back one, not the front one. The Barda chamber is actually what opens when a person's body dies and they go through natural ascension. They, where they get out of body, they would go through the Barda chamber. That would be experienced as the tunnel of light and those kind of things. There are smaller tunnels that aren't the full Bardo chamber, but it would actually be the consciousness of the spirit coming out and going through those chambers to vacate the body. Now, that doesn't mean it's the death point, all right? So it doesn't mean that when we hit this time that the planet's going to die or anything like that. It just means that chamber will open. That chamber is a good thing because it allows for frequency to come out from center to us as well. So we're going to learn about, we've learned a lot already about these things in other workshops, but we're going to be working with, I believe, the 4-chamber, the 6-chamber set with the activations we're doing. I'll show you what that is when we get to the point where we're doing the activations. But all of the structures plug into the processes, plug into the time cycles and how to chart the cycles of movements and what happens. So these become very practical, where the cycles themselves become practical, where you can chart your dates, know what's coming in the future, know what you went through in the past, once you understand how to put these into the time frame that you're actually in. You'll find when we look at the structures that the structures also allow us to see where we are. They provide the structures for the maps, so we can say, okay, where are we down on Earth here in this little solar system in this galaxy called the Milky Way? Where is that in relation to God knows what? And God, right in the whole structure, where are we in relation to what? So all of these things allow us some very practical information to know where we are in time, to know where we are in space, and to know what the natural process of evolution is supposed to be, so we can start becoming part of conscious evolution. We can start consciously evolving. So we'll just go to the next one, but we are here. The next phase is called the Masha phase, and that's when those 2 balls that I talked about come together in the center and then come back out. The Masha phase has to do with a word called the Mashayahana. Mashayahana, or the Mashayas. Now the word Messiah got twisted in translations from the old text. This information, part of it, was in the old Atlantean text and the Cloister Duratura plate texts, which were the Maharata texts. So these words were actually there before they got translated into English here and those kind of things. The word Mashaya has to do with ones who go through this, enter this fold, and finish this cycle, and go through into the Mashayahanic fold after they finish the Masha cycle. And that is where the transfiguration can fully begin, a full transfiguration of the body form. So the whole legends about the Messiahs and the Messiahs coming and all of that. The Messiah was a twisted concept having to do with the word Messiah. And Messiah got twisted into waiting for some great being to come down and save you from the outside. The teachings were never about the outer Christ. They were about the inner Christ. And that is what Jesus stood for too. He was real. Jesus was very real. He was known as Joshua 12. Well, we call him 12 just to indicate his strand count on DNA. But his name was Jeshua. He was actually of the Constantine family line, which became the Constantine family line later. And there was another guy named Jeshua 9 who was an Anunnaki that was supposed to be part of the Ascension program and decided to take it in a different direction. And he's associated with the things like you see in the Da Vinci Code and the lines coming with that. So there were actually 3 Christs. You had those 2, and you had one other one, poor guy named Arahabi. He's the one that actually got crucified. Neither of the Jeshuas did. So Jeshua 12, the one that was the actual, excuse me, Messiah, he wasn't crucified. He finally left by choice through ascension out of the gates at Giza, which is Stargate 4. And he left through the Giza passages. And the other one, I forget what happened to him, because I don't really track the story of Jeshua 9, because that's a different family line. That's the Anunnaki family line, and they were part of the ones that broke the Treaty of Voltaire and decided that they were going to take over the planetary grids and fight the Dracs and all that stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to put a little bit about the Jeshuas in there, because there's a rumor going around, actually it's on somebody's website, that they had the nerve to actually say that, and it really ticks me off, because there's a person who says, oh, she's this and she's that, right? And it's a person who's in a position similar to mine as far as a public speaker, teaching certain things. Now, I've never gone after that person. I've never, picked on the person. I don't even name the person in public. I address the teachings. I don't even call the teachings by their published name. I say enough about them so the comparisons can be made. But this person said, and she doesn't even like Jesus. Oh, didn't like that one much. I won't let it bother me. I don't have to. But it's funny because Jeshua was one of the speakers. He was speaker 2 in that time period. And there's a man that came to be known as John the Baptist that was speaker 1. And there was a woman that nobody heard about much that was called Miriam that was speaker 3. There were the 3 speakers then too. And that wasn't the first time. They were there before. They were in Hindu form, like in the Hindu teachings. They were even back before that. They were the speaker configuration of bringing this information here has been going on for eons. But as far as I want the people especially that might not know much about me or the work to understand that we are not against Christianity. What we don't appreciate are the distortions, and I don't want anybody to think I personally don't like Jesus or don't believe in Jesus, because I very much so do. The thing that differs between base Christian teachings and the teachings that we are teaching the teachings of the inner Christ or the inner Christ, and that is exactly what Jesus taught. The big difference is there's a whole movement in Christianity that's highly attached to having to have a martyr as their savior. Hanging him on crosses. That is Jesus. That was our hobby. Historically, it's in the Maharata plate records. That was our hobby. He was tricked into being a decoy. So Jeshua 9 could escape to France. So, anyway, it's really sad to see what a twist in history back then can lead to this far in the future. But I just want people to understand that might not know, much about us or about me or anything, that we are not at all against the teachings of Jesus. In fact, we are giving a version of what Jesus was teaching, just so it's known. Anyway, next one, please. Another tangent. This is just showing the same thing. Don't worry about the words right now, because these are actually pulled from other texts. Some of these were from the module that Melissa and Fraz were offering. But this is just showing where we are in the cycles again, down and through here. And there's tons of information that go with explaining these cycles and all that, and they've been progressively given in various workshops. And I think some of them are analyzed already. I've gone back to like 2007 with analyzing the workshops and content, and I think these came out in that in that period, so it should be, if you read the stuff that hopefully Kinko's will get printed for us all, you should be able to find what workshops they're in if you're interested in going backward and getting that information and watching the workshops that focus more on this information. Next one, please. Oh, yeah. this is showing a tiny little piece of time within that larger cycle. I'm not going to even explain what this stuff is right now. That had to do with when we talked about the spirals, the Christic spirals and the Metatronic spirals. And again, we're just looking at a time frame that started with April 2009 when we did the big workshop in the Drum Circle in Sarasota, where we had the big Orb Fest, where major activations were taking place. And we're working through this time cycle down into, and this is like a smaller one within that larger time cycle, the Barta cycle. This is a little phase. This has only taken us from April of 2009 up to December 15th of 2012. All right, so this is the immediate smaller cycle that we're in the middle of, and various things occur during this period. So again, I'm just trying to show you how these cycles fit together, and that the fact that there are structures that form at each, at points in each of these cycles. And when we look at the structures, you'll see where the space that has to do with maps and the time that has to do with cycles go together to give us the understanding. Because in the Camelot project interviews, I went over it really quickly because of the scale of what needed to be accomplished. And I didn't put that sequence together. The Beloveds did. They said, this is what we want to put out as the official disclosure thing. And I was like, okay. So this is adding a little bit more detail of how those pieces fit and showing a little bit more of the graphology that goes with them. Next one, please. Now we're going to talk about spirit body. All right. This is from the module that Melissa and Fraz were offering. So we're just going to, I just have it here just for spirit body. I'm not going to go through each of these phases. You can go to their module to learn the consolidated form of, really, in a nutshell, what is transfigurative ascension, because they did a perfect job of pulling that data out of the massive sea of information that we've been given to make it concise where you could understand it, but still see the detail and understand it. So I just wanted to point this out for spirit body. Hey, there's one less than 2 minutes. Next one, please. Oh, I know. I have it in there again for a reason. To bring us back to spirit body gestation cycle, right? So these are it's in this phase, that cetus cycle where the spirit body is creation, that you will see the formations or the structures of the spirit body, be they your personal one or a cosmic one or a galactic one or whatever, right? So it was just to show again that it's this area that we're talking about and the structures that go with this particular set of processes and time. Okay, next one, please. I think right now Melissa and Fraz are doing a much better job than I would at this, because it's been so long since I've had to do these that we have to go back in and look at all the detail. There was a ton of graphs that went with this whole sequence. This is a bit of, each one of these are actually big full graphs that then got consolidated into summaries progressively. This is just showing the spirit body when it starts. It starts with the kusha, which corresponds to what is said on that other time chart, with the point where the kusha forms. I'm not going to go explaining what the kusha is. There's whole workshops done on explaining every part of this, every word, where you know what every word means, every shape, those kind of things. I just wanted to show you that as where the spirit body starts growing is with the kusha, and it progressively does, it phases and creates quantum generation, which means it expands its quantum, its original quantum. It expands and progressively forms more shapes, more cells. These are spheres. Think of spheres within spheres. So there are these levels that form the core levels. This part is called the first eye and heart of God. All right, and it has to do with the eternal lava flows. They call them lava flows, and that kind of corresponds to lava on planets, actually, and how that actually works. And there's actually lava in stars as well. So they didn't get into that level of it, but this is where we talk about the lava flows. And you hear a lot of people in the group going, oh, the lavas, I love you, I love you. They're talking about the core flows that come from the core aspects of the spirit body. And these are the eternal flows of the Christ. These are the 7 core lava currents. And this is where you get the Karaya Satahala, right? The 7 core vibration sounds that go with the 7 first currents that form from this process as the core of the spirit body is growing. And then there's a whole bunch of graphs that go into, this is like the 3 eyes of God, where first you get 1 eye, and then it replicates and you end up with 3 of them. This is progressively building the structure that you will see very soon that has to do with the spirit body structure that we talk about, and now we just kind of like pull out the big graph and show that's the spirit body, right? They actually showed us how that was built, and there's all sorts of things with what had what quantum. This had like number this had number that, and this mixes with number that, and then mixes this number. It was amazing, some of it. It was like, and I really don't like numbers, so it's like, oh God, I hate doing this. You know, I love the information, but oh really, we should bring somebody down to transcribe the numbers. But we got through the numbers, and fortunately you don't have to know all that stuff. But if you want to do, what we're really doing is getting a PhD in metaphysics. Now, you don't get a fancy degree or anything at the end of it, except if it really works, you get out of here, right? But the equivalent of the information and the detail that has been given would be equivalent to something like going to whatever major you were going to major in college and getting a PhD in it. Not everybody needs a PhD to do what it is, you know, they would like to do in life and with life. And that applies to here too. But they had to give the PhD program first because it was going to take that to keep the gates open here once the Treaty of Altair was broken by the Anunnaki and they were going into grid wars. So what's going to be nice is once we finally do get the step-down gentle program for people who don't want a PhD, we've already got the high level of the ministry, where just like in any church structure, you will have the people who are the masters, the ones who've studied all the texts and know lots and lots of stuff about it. And then you have like the middle priest caste that knows a bit about it, knows how to make it work on the ground and operate it, but never studied all the heavy-duty texts. We're going to end up with two levels of the MCEO priesthood, with ones being the ones that are carrying, the record keepers, basically, that know all of the big stuff, and the others who are just, they feel a calling and they want to be able to help other people and find the spiritual peace themselves. But what we are doing is this is the I don't like to use the word master priest caste, but we will be the ones who carry, we are the record keepers, the ones who hold all of this knowledge. So everybody's welcome. It's not one that you can, we're going to say, oh, the other people who want to come in later can't. No, it's always open as long as there's something to run DVDs on, which is what's a little scary, because if electricity ever goes, all of these teachings, most of them, are gone, which is scary. But there's an awful lot for a transcription team to attempt to put on paper. Anyway, this is just showing how the spirit body core forms with the Karayasata Hala, or even the Karayasata. We sometimes just leave it at Christ or Christa, but it's Christala, actually, when you do the whole thing. And these are the eye of God things. And these things all phase. They're spheres of energy with different quantum and different qualities of not quite matter. They're before you get into what we call matter. And they move together and they phase and they make sparks, and that generates currents. It generates the currents that start coming out from the center of the spirit body. And these currents are currents of consciousness. They're coming from source consciousness field, that Aya place that we're just learning about, that has to do with the God source consciousness field. It's when it first individuates and starts coming into individual expression, be it as a universe or cosmos or a person. It starts with this structure of the spirit body. Next one, please. Now, Hara bodies of the Lumeridana spirit body. This is showing a part of the Lumeridana spirit body, but in simple form. Now this would be just looking at, front view. These are spheres, remember, they're not just flat circles. We're dealing with spheres of energy. If you turn that on its side, right, if that was a dish of spheres and you turned it on its side, right, it would look something like this, right? So they're just showing you that these are the Hara bodies, because we're going to look at these a bit in terms of certain structures and processes, so we know where we are. It's from understanding these structures that we can understand the maps, and from understanding the maps, we can understand where it is we're going to be projecting to, where we are drawing frequency from, and why it's exciting that the levels that are opening now with the Aya field is something we've been working for the whole time to get to this point. So we'll start simply with those. It's you can from the front of the back, you see the spheres laid out like this. Turn it on its side, you would see them from the side, and it doesn't look quite spherical, not yet anyway. So these are the basic structures. What you're seeing here are called Illyrian chambers. I won't get heavily into Illyrian chambers, for people who don't know. For people who do know, you know why I won't get heavily into Illyrian chambers. They're basically what form what eventually becomes atoms of elements. There's 144 different elements that form on these chambers. There's 12 Illyrian chambers, and each chamber would form 12 elements, and that's where you get the 144 elements of the actual periodic table. And it plugs right into the periodic table that science knows, but there's more elements than have been identified. So anyway, we've got the basic structures. When you have one of these lines, the Illyrian chamber lines, that also is what's known as a vector line or a time vector line. It has two event horizons. One would be this one, right, to the center. That's an event horizon. And then from the center back out, that's another event horizon. So one vector line has two event horizons. On each of the Illyrian chambers, you will see a structure of a sphere, all right, on each one. We'll look at what these are called because they're actually called hara bodies of the spirit body. And it's the spirit body structure that actually forms what's called hara bodies and processes that are built on hara bodies, which we'll look at very soon. So I just wanted you to see the base thing before we get the flows and things in there, before we get the Illumiradana happening, because that has lots of detail to it. This is the basic structure that we are dealing with, where you have the 12 vector lines, and on each of the vector lines has two event horizons. Each event horizon has a sphere of energy, or a hara body, and its corresponding event horizon on that vector line also has a sphere of energy, one of the hara bodies. At the center, there is the third hara body that links the two. When I talk briefly about how at certain points we go through the Mashayahanic fold, where the spheres come together into the center, that's what it's talking about. One set of these would phase together on its vector line, and each event horizon would meet in the center. The center is referred to as the bud. That's where we get the concept of the Buddhas as they're used with our teachings. So we've covered all sorts of aspects of the structure of this. This is just showing some basic things to touch base with where we were, and so people can catch up if they don't know. I think we'll go on to the next one, please. Excuse me, shoes are going again. Ow. Hey, at least this time I haven't done any of the shirt on and off thing. Not full shirt, but there are times when the heat waves come through with the heat comes through with the wave that I'll get so hot. Just the scarf comes off, the sweater comes off. That's why I always wear layers so I don't end up naked on stage. But so far I haven't had to take clothes off. Now, that structure that you saw, the balls, all right? I call them the balls. And there's other structures inside them that are referred to as the bones that have to do with the interwoven catharogrids that we'll see in a minute. But when the balls are still here, which are the hara bodies, two on each vector line, one for each event horizon, and the center ones, all of these things are flows. They're flows of currents. Those 12 points, those 12 petals, are forming on the Illyrian chamber lines that we talked about. And they're chamber lines where energy circulates out and back. So they're circulation systems. And these flows here, these are called the Astura flows of the spirit body. And half of one looks like the Azurite A that we use sometimes that goes like that. That's actually half of an Astura flow. A full Astura flow would be the Azurite A with a backward one going the other way next to it. It forms these. These are the bigger outer flows. And then in here you have these little figure 8 type flows. These are the core flows. They're called the spanner flows. When we talk about spanner gates, we're talking about gate systems in a planetary body or a galactic body that are these. So the configuration, they look something like a figure 8, and they are running the core lavas, the core lava flows. They require more DNA coding to use than the outer flows. In terms of gates, the angelic human, we're in angelic human seeding 3 on this planet. The other 2 seedings were destroyed. The information on that is in Voyager's book. But seeding 3 was seeded through these, not the core gates, which means the seeding 3 angelic humans had only the coding to go with these outer gates. If at this point in time, because of what has happened to the natural Templar in this system, the outer gates alone would not be enough to be able to hold the ascension system open. That's why we've been given upgrades at various points that are called the Aquari genes have been given back to us in seeding 3 back between 13,400 and 10,500 BC. There were hybridization with what are called the Aquarian and the Aquafarian races in order to bring back the codes that seeding 2 humans actually had. Seeding 2 humans that before our seeding, when they were wiped out, the seeding 2 ones, were wiped out. But before that, they had been actually born through and incarnated from the center through these gates. So they had all of the codes to the spanner gates. Another word for the spanner gates are called the Navajo gates. And the races of angelic humans that were brought back in, or actually that were from Seeding 2, were referred to as the Navajo, and that is actually, there's still a descendant trace in the Navajo lines of the Native American people. There's also other lines of people that carry that all over the place that aren't affiliated with Native Americans. So anyway, the Lumiridana spirit body is the key to understanding lots and lots of things. It's the key to understanding the base structure of your own spirit body. This is before we even get to your light body. They interface with each other, right? And your Ajay hydroacoustic body, which interfaces, and your Rasha body, which we're not going through all those tonight, just so you know, this morning, whatever it is. But I wanted to touch base with the Illyrian chamber lines, the flows that form on them, the outer Astura flows, and the inner core flows, or the Navajo flows, and just how all those things fit together with the structures. And in the core of these things, this is where we end up. I'm not going to do this heavily either. It was covered in other workshops. But at the core of these, you end up with the Akasha, I forget what they call the one on the other side, but the Akashic and the Akushik records that have to do with the Atori side, which we are on, and the opposite spin Adori side of creation. This is where we get halls of records and all of those things on the planetary level. When they're talking about opening the halls of records, they're talking about opening these core structures that are in the core here. When we talk about the Akashic record, it would be the first, I believe it's the first of the first 8 cells, and then the halls are the 8 cells that form around that first cell. So all of these things that you hear in the mythologies and all of that about halls of records and well, this is what they are, and this is how they form. They're part of these structures. And so this goes of understanding self, but also understanding cosmos, understanding planet. It's all the same anatomy that from the macrocosm down to the microcosm we share. And it's the invisible part. We look different here, but we all started with the same structure. The structure can become damaged, and that's what's happened on this planet, in this galaxy, and in our own biofields, but it can still be repaired at this point in time because we're not in full fall yet. Next one, please. That's just a close-up of structure of one of the core flows and also of one of the Navajo spanner gates. And there's lots of different aspects. See all these chambers? There's like chambers of energy inside of them, and then these larger flows that form out here, and there's also Merkabah structures that form around them when they fully activate, and they literally allow you to go in your Christ-Star vehicle that's shaped something like that, and transfigure yourself into light, and then actually first transmute yourself into light, and then transfigure yourself into spirit body, and disappear, and pop up elsewhere. And there's platforms that these connect to, and there's maps that they connect to that are literally the planes maps. Here, I'll just show you that really briefly in case people haven't seen that. Next one, please. We were talking about these on a Stargate level, a Stargate that's on a planet, for instance. This was a mural, actually, that's at the Shalon house that I painted on the wall. It was really big. I didn't paint this part, but I painted what you see behind this that you can't see really well. This was a full-color mural. And it was done to show how the spanner gates fit. All of these reach different platforms that are at different layers of the atmosphere, and they lead to different things. They lead to different things. There's like subterranean cities. There's cloud cities, what we consider cloud cities because they're up where our clouds are. There are what they call the ocean cities, where there's layers of actually aquifers that interface with different planes or different levels going up from the Earth's surface up into its atmosphere. So this is just showing you how, even though we were talking about the structure of spirit body, how that structure of spirit body literally forms the structure of gate structures on this planet and in the cosmos. There are little ones on a planet, just like there's even smaller gates inside you. You have spanner gates inside you too, your spirit body spanner gates. But there are sets of them. You would have the planetary level ones that would connect to the solar ones, the central sun in that solar system. They would connect to another set. They would connect to another set in the galaxy. The galaxy ones would connect to another set in what's called the mega galaxy level. They would connect to another set in what's called the universal level, which is called a Veka. They would connect to another set there in what's called the Akasha level, which is going up from the universal level, this is part of the structure that it builds that the maps are about. So there's all these sets of gates that if the planetary leads to the solar leads to basically the galactic leads to the next level up, until you're fully into expansion into the cosmic matrix. So I just wanted to show how it's not just spirit body of personal, and not just spirit body even of cosmic, that's just, oh, a spirit body floating there. No, spirit body is what forms the core flows that form the core gates, and then there's outer gate structures that also interface with these that are natural part of planetary and personal and cosmic anatomy. Next one, please. I go, yeah. I'm not going to cover this one heavily. I might come back to this tomorrow, actually. But this is showing on the same structures. I just want to do this really quick. We have, as you'll notice here, there's not just 12 lines, right? There's not just 12 rays, there's 24. This is because we're showing the Illyrian chambers that we showed, spirit body chambers. We're showing those, but in between them, there are what are called the fire chambers. The fire chambers are flow chambers that are in the light body structure. And because spirit body and light body are existing in the same place, they're just made of different stuff and they have different qualities that differentiate one body from the next. There's a flow that happens between where energy comes from center, and I won't even get into that because there's a whole workshop on that and the pentagonal flows and all sorts of complicated things. But simply, energy comes out at the same time from the center into all of the 12 Illyrian chambers, comes up, and it hits the outside portions of what, now in this term, this would be considered the Ajay hydroacoustic body layer that's part of the spirit body. Well, it's kind of like between the spirit body structure and the light body structure. Energy would come out, hit that boundary, and split, forming currents. So whatever the coding, the encryption on this level, on this line was, the Illyrian chamber line was, that would split. Part of it would go this way, part of it would go that way. Part of it would interface with fire chamber 12, part with fire chamber 1, and they'd all be doing this, right? So it's a mix master. They refer to it as the mix master because this is literally what begins the formation of where spirit body energy and light body energy and what is called Rasha energy that has to do with the core begins to circulate and break apart, refract, and create what are called refracted code particles that come together. They start to group together. Once the split happens, down in the fire chambers, you will have other things happening once the energy comes together and blends in the fire chambers that actually creates the things that bond together to form atoms. Now, each of these fire chambers has very specific encryption, and there are layers to this where you've got 12, you've got the 12 Illyrian chambers. The Illyrian chambers are what carry the signature for the elements. And there are 144 natural elements. And there are 144 of them because each one of the Illyrian chambers has the coding for 12 elements. So when you have the frequencies from here coming out and splitting, that's carrying very specific elemental encryptions like hydrogen, oxygen, helium, right? And then we all broke them down too. It's actually, I'm not going to read them all right now, but they actually have them there. So you see what they are. There's also dimensional structure involved with it where you have the Illyrian chambers. If you're on an Illyrian chamber, let's say it's 11 out here, right? Say that's called the density level, which is like a barrier around D1, 2, 3, density 1. You come down into D3 level, it's the same thing, Illyrian chamber 11, Illyrian chamber 11. You come down to D2, we're on Illyrian chamber 3. This is why it's a mix master, because these spheres of energy that are holding the Illyrian chambers, actually the chamber numbers, which has to do with the encryption they hold, actually changes. So you go from the 11 to 3, and then down here into 5. So you're getting different combinations of these core encryptions that form little light units called refracted code particles that then come together and literally form the different atoms. A way to look at this and to not have to memorize all of this stuff and to activate the potentiality for those 144 atoms in your light body structure and your physical body structure is simply using that translated with its frequency colors, because each one of those dimensions, each one of those numbers, 1 through 12, has a specific color frequency. This is where we get the Alaria Rashatan. When it's not in color, it looks like this. Next one, please. I do believe. That is what you just saw without the technicals, without showing, labeling the lines. These are just the color combinations. The colors have to do with what dimension they are. What the number is will actually tell you what, if you look back on the Mixmaster like key chart, you'll actually be able to see, oh, that's hydrogen, oh, that's oxygen, or that's whatever, right? But it's encoded in this living symbol form. It is literally a living symbol form that carries the encryption of the 144 elements. So I just wanted to bring that back for a minute. So people that have, when I've talked about, you'll see some strange things here, and, sometimes we inhale. The energy from codes, pictures, pretty pictures. All of the pretty pictures mean something. They all, many of them, we have all of the technicals going all the way up that shows you what the structures are, where those forms came from, all the flame pictures you might see around in people's windows when you walk down that way outside. I don't know whose room that is, but it's really nice to see them in the window. They all plug in this way to the mathematics, to the actual structures and processes and time cycles that creation exists within and it runs on. Next one, please. Now, we're going to come back to a simpler way to look at, remember the spheres, the Hara bodies of the Lumeridana spirit body that had all of the spheres around. This is looking at just one vector line. Okay? Where you have the one vector line, and that one vector line has two event horizons, and it has the central area out of which these two spheres or bodies actually first come. So it all starts at the center and then they expand outward. What this is showing you too, and it wasn't shown on the other diagram that just showed all of the 12 of them, because it gets really, you can't really see what you're even looking at when you have all the detail on all 12 of them. But this can show you that inside, you not only have, on one vector line, you have the central sphere of energy, the central Hara body that the other two come out of. You have this Hara body and that one, but you have these little smaller ones inside. These have to do with the core formations that we were talking about, with the core lavas and the core structures of the spirit body structure. And they form literally these smaller spheres within the larger spheres of the Hara body structure. And again, this structure applies to anything that has a spirit body structure, which means everything. All right, everything originally started with a spirit body structure like this. So it applies to large structures such as the cosmos and smaller structures such as you. So these are showing you what we'll look at in a second, that it represent the time cycles of, literally, of what expansion into materialization and then turning around and going back into dematerialization back into source is. It's easier to see when you just look at them on one vector line, because technically you're just seeing one out of the 12 vector lines, which means you would have sets of these on all of those vector lines, right? So you get lots of those little time cycles, and they move in and out and expand and contract. That's the natural breathing rhythm of source, bringing itself back from manifestation, parts of its consciousness, and then expanding it back out. That is a natural cycle of evolution. Next one, please. I'm not going to go through all the detail in this just to show you it's here, because this is showing you when we talk about the time cycles that have to do with these structures. We are dealing here with the yuga cycles that we talked about. We have the core yuga cycle, the Rala yuga, the inner, which is the Ala yuga, the middle, which is the Shala yuga that goes with the Edans, and we have the Kali yuga, which is, or it should be an A actually, it's Kali yuga. It's out here. And this is the place when you finish accreting the frequencies of this cycle is when you go into the Christ star ascension turnaround. And then you go back in through the Adashi 1 cycle, Adashi 2 cycle, Adashi 3 return cycles. So it's a very simple process of consciousness expanding out into materialization, turning back around and dematerializing, going back into source. It's an eternal process as long as the structures are not damaged. And the problem in this cosmos, well, in the more local area of this universe, which when I say this universe really is what would be referred to as what science calls the Andromeda Galaxy. All right, the Andromeda Galaxy, Milky Way is supposed to be a part of. It actually fell out, and there's about, what is it? I forget, 2 billion light years or something. 2.2 million, thank you. There's about 2.2 million light years between Milky Way and Andromeda right now. But Milky Way was once a part of that system. Okay, I'm getting nudged here. Okay, what do you want me to not talk about? Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. What's interesting here, can I do this? All right. Where these cycles that expand outward first, the yugas, they're referred to collectively as the Akashi expansion cycles. Now, at the same time as these are expanding out, that's only on one event horizon. Simultaneously, on the opposite event horizon, there is another set expanding out. That other set, if you are over here, let's say, in a universe that's over here, this other one that's on the same vector line as you, the other event horizon, is referred to as your adjugate, or your adjugate twin. So actually, the spirit body, part of your more immediate spirit body energy, actually materializes over here, and your matter body materializes over here, and same for the other. The physical body, or matter body, let's say, of your adjugate twin self would be materialized here, and its spirit body would be over here. Now, so you have a spirit body with you, but it happens to be that one's, right? And vice versa. They meet in the middle when the natural contraction into center, happens, and then they come back out again and recharge. But when we refer to the currents that are called the iridanis, you'll see that in some of the work. The iridanis is the adjugate spirit. That is the spirit body that you immediately work with, that is the spirit body of the other side that is with you, and your spirit body is with them. Technically, the whole thing is the spirit body. These are the more localized spirit body energies of the higher bodies. And there's a natural process in these time cycles. There's a set of the time cycles that go out that way, where the yugas go out this way. These are called the ianas. They're the expansion cycles over there. And where we have adashi return cycles, they have ekashi return cycles coming back this way. So that is the structure of time, how time works in relation to the structures of spirit body structure. Next one, please. Light body. Oh. I think we can do this fast, because I don't have a lot of these. I just put a couple up just so people see that there are differences between the two. Next one, please. Light body. The big word on top is all we need to know. We've seen this before. This is showing over here. This is where the light body structure begins to form, all right, in that place on this time cycle. Remember, conception started here, right? All right, and spirit body started here, and spirit body, Lumeridana spirit body, the big one,